Hello, Vooperia. I'm Pope Francis, former Prime Minister of Vooperia and longtime senator from
Hello,
San Vuprisco.
Vooperia.
I would like to welcome
former-
you to Vooperia's 5th Prime Minister debate, where we'll be choosing Vooperia's next Prime Minister. To begin the pre-debate show, I have here with me Etho. Etho, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How about you, Pope?
I'm doing just fine. After Etho, we have all the other candidates that we'll be interviewing, and we'll take this opportunity to learn more about each candidate. So, Etho, how have you been? I mean, it's been a while since you and me have talked. What's been happening in your life?
Nothing really. I mean, I'm now in a place where I've found myself able to return back to government in Vooperia after working on
Awesome.
a little bit of personal development. So I'm excited to kind of get back into the fray, and then potentially offer an option to the people that will really kind of exemplify the liberty that needs to be in government.
Definitely. That's really cool. I'm glad that you found yourself in that place. So pertaining to the prime ministership, now that you've had that time, what specific position should the people trust you with when they elect you as prime minister? What positions have you held that have qualified you for this position?
Well, firstly, I've served in the senatorship for New Vooperia before, New Vupris before, and that's been a great opportunity for me to be able to engage with my constituents, and also show that I have proven leadership and I have the skills to go about pursuing the legislation that we'll need in order to grow the trust in government as well as grow our prosperity in the economy. I have all that experience behind me, and I'm ready to get to work to make sure that we get that done. Um,
Hmm.
I'm particularly focused going into this election on two things. Firstly, government accountability and transparency, and then our
Yeah.
economy.
Hmm.
In terms of our government accountability, now that we have a new constitution in effect, I think that it's important that we ensure that there are people on the bench that are going to uphold the cornerstone of our democracy, which is within our natural rights that are ensured in our constitution.
Hmm.
Um, I think that as I go in to the prime ministership and appoint these judges to the bench, I would ensure that they have a commitment to those values,
Yeah.
because they are central to what we hold dear as Riparians, what makes us free, and that's
Hmm.
that's a central core theme to what I'm trying to bring to the table: freedom, liberty, prosperity. That rolls back to into our economy. We have a robust set of businesses, resources, all of these things that we have to offer throughout
Yeah.
our districts. And um, basically, what my proposal is, particularly because we have um, a seat on the economic decision making in our government through the prime ministership, I
Yeah.
would be actively involved in making sure that we make prudent decisions that keep government out of the way of the individuals and businesses which drive the prosperity of our economy, and make sure that we keep our currency strong, our currency valuable. And I can go a bit more into that, but I'm sure that you have a little more that you'd like to ask
Yeah.
on behalf of the voters.
Definitely. Thank you for that little opening statement there, Etho. I'm gonna kind of give it a hard hit right off the bat.
Absolutely.
A lot of people have showed some fair and genuine concern with your level of activity here on Vooperia. Speaking for myself, I can't really talk on that aspect, but how from the voters' perspective, how can they trust that when you're elected, you'll continue to be active and achieve what you've set out to achieve?
Well, when I set out to achieve something and I give my word to people, I do not take that lightly. I think the most valuable thing that you can have as an individual is your word. And my word to the constituents that I will serve throughout Vuperia is that if you put me in the office of the prime minister, I will set out to do what I've said I will do. I will do it
Good.
strongly. I will do it with both feet planted on the ground, and I will make sure that there will always be time for me to do that.
Awesome. I appreciate you answering that question. specifically referring to, Spike just recently talked about how he's working on a new economic system. How and what specific policies would you implement to ensure that the economy is properly nourished?
Well, firstly, I'll go back to how we had mentioned that there is a robust set of natural resources and then also businesses that we have. I think that it's important that as we embark forward on this mission to grow our economy, that we realize the value that we have in our natural resources. Firstly, to ensure that there's value in our currency. I stand behind a standard for our currency to back up the central bank currency. I believe that there are several options we could pursue. I think that we could, evaluate the respective value of those scarce resources and make sure that we have a currency that's tied to real value, not just floating around and based on the backing of some, you know, uh, subjective value that's assigned by the government. I think that ensures that we have a currency that could nourish our businesses, make sure that they have an environment where they know the money that I'm going to put into this economy is going to mean something. And I
Yeah.
think that also, if we ensure that we have government policy that doesn't get in the way of businesses, allows businesses to thrive, do what they need to do without the fear of government stepping in and preventing them from doing what they need to do to thrive, to offer jobs to our citizens, then we will see a prosperous economy. And I am all for that head first, making sure that we have that going into my prime ministership.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us here, Etho, and kind of going over our candidates, specifically your interest and what your plans are for prime minister. So thank you so much for that. Upcoming next,
Thank you.
we're gonna have Ray come up here next and answer the rest of our questions. So Ray, if you could.
Oh,
Ray,
hello.
if you could approach the bench.
Yeah, one second. Let me get up. There we go.
Well, Ray, how are you doing today?
Oh,
How you been?
excellent.
That's great. That's great. First of all, congratulations on running for prime minister.
Yeah,
It's good to see someone from my home district and your home district as well, San Francisco, a district that
yeah.
we're all very proud of. And it's exciting to see someone running for my district, and it's great to see you reaching for the top. Um, to get started, Ray, specifically, kind of asking along the lines of what I asked Etho, what makes you qualified to be prime minister?
Well, I'm going to touch on a lot of this in my opening speech after the interview part is over. But my main point here is that, first of all, I have more actual experience in the Third Senate than almost everybody else here, and also I'm the only person from who joined during the Third Senate who actually got a significant government position. Like all of the
Yeah,
other major people were all people who had already been there, and
yeah.
I basically went from a white name to prime minister in 9 or 10 months,
Wow.
which I think is not something anyone else can say.
I have to say, when I joined the community when I was in the first Senate, I followed a similar thing, and I understand just how hard and difficult that is to go from a
Yeah,
nobody to a somebody.
it took a lot of work. It was very difficult, but I was dedicated and I did the job and I moved up.
Hmm. Well, that's just great. So following along the lines of what I spoke to Etho about, what specific plans in specific would you implement to nourish the economy?
Well, I've spoken to Jacob already about what my economic position here is. Now, I know that the Prime Minister is one of the people sitting on the Economic Council, the Imperial Reserve Panel,
Yeah,
and so I'm gonna obviously have a significant part to play in this economy. And I think the main thing for the economic policy is just we need to make the economy something that people want to involve themselves in because it's fun. If
yeah,
it's not fun, even if it's expertly planned, if it's perfectly, made to be perfectly functioning, it won't work if it's not fun because no one will use it.
definitely.
So we need, we need to make it interesting. We needed to make it more than just like stocks, because if it's just stocks, that's not very interesting.
Fair
I,
that, true that.
I know Spike has been working on some economic stuff in the background, coding some stuff. So hopefully we can see more of that. And when that comes out, we can work on that and help integrate that into the community and the government and all the stuff we already have. But as far as once it's running and once we have everything set up, as far as economic policy, for the most part, I'm going to admit I'm not an economist. I don't know how a lot of this works. I'm not going to pretend I know how a lot of this works. So that's what the panel is for. So I'll put my 2 cents in, I'll give my opinions, I'll make sure everything's working smoothly. But for the most part, I'll leave economy stuff to people who I trust and who I know actually know how to run things and make good economic decisions.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Ray. I guess kind of touching into a more personal note. Vooperia is such a diverse place of opinions and minds and political views and everything. What draws you to be a part of this community? What specifically about Vooperia makes you excited, makes you want to do what you do every day?
I mean, in a lot of the things I involve myself with, like it's about making the experience better for other people. Like I'm running because I think that my views and the things I do and my activity and my dedication can help everyone else. And it's not just about whether, I enjoy Vooperia, like, do I find it fun? Do I find it engaging? It's about making it fun and engaging for everyone else. That's what I'm here for.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you for that answer, Ray. Just for the viewers who are watching, tell us a little bit more about who you are. Tell us about the kind of person you want to be as prime minister, and on top of that, just who you are as a person.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm pretty much, I believe, if I'm looking at the people in the VC, I believe I'm the most recent joiner. I'm the newest person of all the candidates, even though I've been here for like a year. But
yeah,
I mean, I have the experience. I have the most recent experience. I was the last prime minister before the previous Senate ended. And like, I've served in all branches of government. I've been a minister. I've been a senator. I've been a district official. I've been an imperial court justice. I've been speaker of the Senate. I've been prime minister. I ran the RP authority to take care of disputes. I mean, I've done everything. I've done it all. So I have very, not just like executive experience, but I have like a very broad skill set that I've cultivated over the last couple of years.
That's interesting. Is there anything like what are some fun things about you that the Vooperian should know? What do you like to do in your free time, specifically like when you're not doing anything related to Vooperia? What is the kind of things you enjoy?
Well, I do a lot of things. I'm involved in a couple of other like government communities. Of course, I run my own. After the Third Senate ended, I have a thing called a Ecosia, which is like sort of like Vooperia but smaller and a little bit different. That I kind of run in the background. I've been running for about a year. It's got like 20 people. So I spend a lot of time there. I spend a lot of time like talking to my friends. I like making maps. I like making diagrams.
Me too. we both love maps.
Writing a lot. I write stuff.
Maps
and
are
of course,
awesome.
I make news articles because I'm the newsman, so I love making news articles.
Oh yeah. I'm sure we both loved making maps about Saber Prisco. I'm sure you remember the maps we made, the very detailed maps of the terrain and everything. That was quite fun, and I'm sure Vooperians, if you're elected, can expect a lot of that.
Yeah.
But thank you, newsman. Thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us a little bit about who you are and who you're running to be. It's been great talking to you.
Yep,
Up next, I'd like Jambon to come join us.
Wow. Hello.
Please come sit on the on the.
I 1 minute. I have to. I'm with the. I'm coming in through the roof. 1 minute. Yeah. I'm here.
All right.
I'm up.
Awesome. If Ray could just get up, that would be great.
That would be grand. Oh wait.
I guess you could join me and Ray up here. I guess. If you
I
wanna
see
sit.
ya. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
there we go. There we go. Awesome.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing today? How are you
I'm
doing
alright.
today, man? That's good. That's good. Well, first of all, you know, it's you've been running for prime minister since the very first election, I think.
Yeah, day one. I've been
Since
running since before we had a constitution.
yes, I remember. You've been the sore thumb of the group that refuses to back down, and that's something I respect.
We
That's a
get very
very
close. I can't be that
yes.
far off.
Yeah, you can. You know, the more maybe what fifth time's the charm.
Probably about 8. If we're being honest.
8 times the charm. Well, anyways, it's great having you here, Jan. I guess I'll just get kind of started off on some of the questions that I asked Etho and asked, of course, Ray. Specifically, you know, related to your positions you've held in Vooperia. What specific positions do you believe you would be qualified for to represent Vooperians as prime minister?
So I've been in almost every position at some point in my existence. I've been on the Supreme Court, the lower court. I've been senator for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah,
And I was speaker for the Senate for about a year, I think.
I remember
I'm definitely not out of practice in being in government.
that. Since the beginning.
It's the beginning. I'm being
Uh,
heckled.
Jampon, say so. Nah, we won't talk about that.
No, we won't speak of it.
We won't speak about that.
Serious
But,
past.
all right. So, you know, referring to the economy, you
Yes.
know, we've had such diverse economies when it comes to nerdcraft back in the day. We had, you know, a lot of different, you know, groups of people doing a lot of different things, some very sketchy, but other ones other ones were good. You know, how will you increase economic activity, and what specific plans and proposals will you do as prime minister to nourish the economy?
Well, considering the changes that Spike has made, in addition to, of course, the new Spook Vooper system, such as like every single district must do trade for their resources now. If this is news to you, you haven't been paying enough attention. So I think realistically, we just have to be able to support districts in doing what they do best, and that's making activity out of their members.
Interesting. Thank you for that. And then kind of piggybacking off that activity, I have to say I have seen Vooperia decline in activity so many times, and I'm sure you've seen it as well.
Indeed.
As prime minister, what will you do to ensure that our activity continues to grow and that we will at least try our very best to not have like struggle to get activity? What policies will you implement, and how, as prime minister, will you encourage activity?
Well, I feel one of our main problems with keeping activity, especially in the main server, is that very often we end up causing split-offs or alternative RPs that generally detract from how much time people have to spend in the main server. And
Yeah.
also you've got to consider, like, some people have obligations, like, I don't know, sports. I don't know. I don't have I don't have others.
Sports,
The cozy is a
school,
good one.
college.
The cozy is a good one. It does normally detract from the main server when they're in play. So the best thing we have to do is keep entertaining things happening in the nation without causing too much disaster. Because we have a problem with causing too much disaster too quickly.
Certain districts, which we won't name.
Yes, certain districts we won't be naming.
But I guess, you know, to kind of give the Vooperians a more personal perspective, tell us more about yourself and who you are, what you stand for, your history. Just tell us about yourself.
That's a hard question, actually. So, I serve the people around me. But I'm not going to call myself perfect, because that would be a lie. If anyone's called themselves perfect, they're not being truthful to you. But I do in fact not like to play sport. This is a known fact.
Jambon likes to play sports.
This is not accurate, Taiko the Pug. I found interest in documenting the past of Spook Vooper recently.
Really?
With my yes. I'm working on the Tree of Life. I assume you've seen it in passing.
I think I have.
Yeah, I've mapped all the evolution of Spook Vooper over time.
That's awesome. I am excited to see that.
And I hope to continue further archival prospects.
Yes. You know, whether or not you are elected, I think we need to, keep this man involved. I mean, you have a lot of there's a lot of dreams and you have a lot of ideas, and that's super important. And to have a vision as a leader is crucial. I guess referring a little more, what are some specific laws, as Prime Minister, do you plan to establish, like foundational laws that will like change or increase anything in Vooperia, make it better?
In terms of plans to establish, I feel like, considering my involvement in creating the constitution we're currently running on,
Yeah.
I don't have any immediate ideas. However, I do intend to be present for any writings to modify the constitution based on any notices in it. Because there's always a couple nuances that we miss, and then it can never pass. It keeps circling around the Senate, and no one ever finished writing it. And I hope to work on just cleaning up the Constitution this time round.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for that, Jem. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Jem. Getting to know you more and interviewing you in front of the whole country. So thank you for your time today. Anything else you want to say before I kick you out?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you.
All right, definitely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Jem. All right, next up, we are having BDD Shad himself joining us today to speak about his candidacy for Prime Minister. BDD Shad, how you doing?
I am all right.
You are just all right. That's good. That's good. You feeling ready for the debate?
I'm not going to be participating.
You're going to be participating?
I pre-recorded the answers.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, BDD Shad, tell us a little bit more about why you believe you're qualified to be Prime Minister.
Because I know how the economy works, and
Mhm.
I have been a senator of the US of A, IRL.
The United States of America? You've been a senator?
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. You are qualified to play sports, right?
No.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So what else? What else do you plan to do? So when you're elected Prime Minister, what specific foundational laws do you plan on passing?
Really any.
Anything specific?
I don't have any law ideas, but I'm just going to use the powers to make stability.
That's cool, man. We've always struggled with activity here in Vooperia, specifically in the community. What are your plans as Prime Minister to make sure that doesn't happen?
Pay some people to be publicists.
What do you mean?
Give them credits to make advertisements and put them on YouTube.
I think that's a very interesting and creative idea. It's important that we encourage all ideas, especially when it comes to activity, because that's something that's like an unsolvable problem. So anything that can increase it is great. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell the Vooperian people a little bit more of who you are and why you believe you should be elected.
I am the senator of Old King, which is why I should be elected. I am a dude.
That's quite cool. Congratulations
Wow, you're
on being a dude. That's pretty cool.
You're a misogynist. You said it's cool being a dude. Okay.
All right. Yeah. I think that's it. Thank you for joining us. All right, next we are having Mr. Taiko joining us here on stage. The man himself, the pug himself, the pug man, Mr. Taiko. Welcome.
Is rocking, Pope Francis.
How are you doing today?
I am just doing fantastic. I've been drinking water. I've been smelling roses.
Smelling of roses and drinking water, man. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, time
That's
of my
awesome. I bet. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you, like the other candidates, on your run for prime minister. Vooperians, Vooperians have known you to be always very active in prime minister times, and you've always been known to run for prime minister. And specifically, when we were running against each other almost 2 years ago, which is crazy to think that it was 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
that was a great time. All right. So Taiko, tell the Vooperian people a little bit more why you believe you're qualified to be prime minister.
I mean, one of the main things I'm known for all of Vooperia, and one of the things I'm commonly called is a bureaucrat. Which basically, I write laws that are very detailed and specific, and I'm just really good at that. So that's basically the main thing I'm going to be focusing on as prime minister. I'm going to write a bunch of laws. I'm going to write election laws, court laws, anything relating to stuff. And I just want to make sure that our legal system is sound and solid.
Awesome. That's real cool, man. Specifically talking about the economy, as I asked the other candidates, how do you plan to nourish economic activity in Vooperia? As something that's we've struggled with in the past, but we had periods of great economic growth. So how do you plan to nourish that growth and make it a staple of your administration?
Well, I think one of the main things is not putting that many restrictions on what people can do, because that's always been very successful in past economies. And at the start, we really don't want to hamper down what anyone wants to do. We want to make sure people make companies, they trade stocks, they mine resources. We want people to just do as much as possible, because that's how we're going to keep them active and happy.
That's great.
So,
Is there anything like specific about like economic policy that you plan to bring on?
Well, as a member of the Imperial panel that advises the CFE and whatnot, I want to make sure that I will read any piece of economic legislation that I see, make sure that it doesn't hamper anyone's ability to do important things. Of course, there will be some reasonable regulations to make sure people don't hurt each other.
Of course.
General,
That's quite
anything
important.
Is fair game. We're in the Wild West. Anything can happen.
Awesome. That's really cool. It's good to know that you have those plans. Taiko, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself. I'm sure a lot of people know you. You're very active. You're very well known on the community. You're very well liked. Tell Vooperians, more about yourself. What do you like to do on your free time? Just talk about yourself.
I like to spend a lot of time doing random things. I've been here for I'll start off with introductions. I've been here for 4 years since 2019.
Wow, 4 years?
Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare if you think about it, but we'll ignore that part. A waking nightmare. But yeah, whenever I'm not writing laws or doing something, I'll usually be doing something else random. I'll make a Google sheet doing all of the resources and balancing the resource system, which is something I did yesterday.
Awesome.
I'll run climate simulations. I just doing random things for the community, because I just find that super fun, and it's just one of the things I like to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that answer, Taiko. Now let's kind of go over some of your specific plans when you become prime minister. What are some of the foundational laws that you're planning to create when you are elected prime minister?
Well, one of the first things is probably relating to the Supreme Court. I've written a lot of Supreme Court laws in the past, and I have a giant law that's 8 pages long with everything about the Supreme Court.
Wow, that's long.
Yeah, I'll have to revise that a bit to get rid of the lower court sections, but I intend to basically make sure the Supreme Court is about the same as last time, and just fill it with a bunch of qualified individuals. Of course, I also need to do election laws since I'm the Imperial Election Manager, and I know a lot about how the elections should be run, and what requirements there should be for that. Basically, just making sure we have tons of laws that make sure everything works as it should, and everything is perfectly running smooth in the government.
Oh,
Oh,
I just got kicked from the game. Give me a second.
I'm here by myself, guys.
Oh,
How's it going, Vooperia? I'm Taiko. Oh, get
That-
DD
that-
Chad
that
out
was
here.
weird.
I don't.
that was
This
very
guy
strange.
stinks.
It won't let me connect to the server.
Hey guys, how's it going?
All right. Well, I mean, I guess we will continue to just talk. I'll just talk, I guess, on the voice chat. Sorry about that. I don't know why it won't work, but so Taiko, referring to activity's always been such a massive problem in Spook Vooperia. We've seen people develop some of the most advanced systems ever created in Vooperia. As part of that, how will you encourage activity? How will you nourish activity as Prime Minister?
Well, one of the main things, as I said earlier, was making sure people can do as much as they want to do. And we just need to make sure that people are happy and having fun. Fun is like the main thing. If
We're
people
back.
aren't having fun, they aren't gonna like stick around. So we just need to prioritize that above like everything else.
Yeah.
Even if something's like, if it doesn't make sense but people are having fun, I say let them have fun. It's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's great. What specifically? What do you have any specific policies in mind that would that you would use to encourage activity?
Not currently. One of them, well, I do intend to bring back the Ministry of Journalism, since that's always fun. I enjoy writing like news stories, and I know a lot of other people enjoy that too. And it's a very effective means of getting people to engage with the community, even if they may not be in the government. I think that's a very effective means to get people more involved in understanding of the whole systems involved there.
Awesome. Taiko, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry about the the glitches that happened, but it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and it's been a pleasure to talk to all the other candidates. We are currently missing about 2 candidates. We are currently missing, I believe, Devin as well as Ball of Emotions. I don't know what they're called, but I'm not entirely sure where they are or if they're going to be joining us. Feel free. We will be right back after a quick break. Thank you. Welcome back, Vooperians. It's Pope Francis once again here. We are just going to be giving you guys a nice little tour of the theater we have here, as well as discussing more about the debate. All right, take a walk with me, will you? Now, this theater was very, very well built by a lot of people. Specifically, Ning. Ning did a great job in constructing this build. And we're quite proud of him, and we're excited to use this build potentially for more debates. We've had multiple iterations of the same building. We've had multiple iterations of the same theater, but specifically this theater has kind of proven to be the most useful and the biggest at this point. Now, if I wanted to talk a little bit more about the weight that this debate, hey Shub, the weight that this debate holds in Vooperia is second to none. We must choose the best prime minister candidate. And when it comes to the candidates, Etho, Taiko, Ray, Jam, BDD Shad, everybody. There's so many options, and as a Vooperian, you need to make sure you make the right decision. Now, my advice for making the best decision on who to vote for is read all of their platforms. Look at the candidates. Look at all the candidates and figure out which candidate you believe is the best. All right, let's keep walking here. Here in Vooperia, we have a tradition where every year we always like to elect a new prime minister, and we have had multiple prime ministers, and I am honored to have been one of them. One thing that I learned as prime minister is the pure struggle and the pure drama that can occur from being prime minister. As a result, these prime ministers are under a lot of pressure right now, trying to figure out how they're going to lead and how they're going to be for the debate. I'm sure all of them has prepped. All of them have prepped with an opening statement. All of the prime ministers are currently working towards, preparing their entire speech, preparing everything. I know from experience, both Spike and Dan both plan on throwing some very, very good curveballs at the candidates to see how they react to specific things. Now, as viewers, I am encouraging you to watch as each candidate reacts to each specific question. Some of these questions may be negative or be directed in kind of a negative light. So, for example, as I asked Etho in the beginning, I asked him, about his activity. I asked Ray about his positions, stuff like that. These are more pointed questions that may not seem like it, but are very important to determine who should be the next prime minister. Let's keep walking. Now, this beautiful hallway is one of my favorites. This will take us all the way to the upper booth in the theater. This is where I, as well as the other former leaders of Vooperia, will be standing and watching the debate. This stage was constructed, I believe, within a week. That's such a good time period for such a well-designed stage. Graphics, of course, were done by me. But we have to just we need to thank Ning for doing such a great job on a stage like this. To continue talking about the debate, I'm going to kind of analyze each of the candidates for you guys, at home. To start off, we'll start off by talking about Ray. Ray is very interesting. As I spoke with him specifically about his, inactivity or potential, since he joined this community so late, I talked to him about how the struggle is joining a community and having to rise to the top so fast, and that's really something that I think he knows well. He's proven, I think, in the last couple months that he's very active, and I think he stands a formidable opponent to Taiko. Now, let's just talk about Taiko. I as this moderator, I don't want to take any sides, but if we analyze all the candidates, Taiko is the most qualified, and I think we can all recognize that. Despite the fact that he's had his scandals, Ray has had his scandals, everyone has had their scandals, but I can say from experience, and I can say from analyzing all of his, he is genuinely the most qualified, and he's the one that poses the greatest threat to Ray. And I think as this continues, we'll be very interested to see how that plays out. And as a result, I would like to invite I would like to invite someone to come and talk with me. I don't know who, but I'd like someone to come and talk with me. I'm going to invite Dan to come and talk with me. And as we discuss this election, Dan, how you doing?
Good.
Good. That's good. Come join me over here as we discuss. So what are your thoughts on the current state of the election? Who do you think stands the greatest chance to win this debate?
I think Taiko's definitely going to be a front runner. Like, given the polling, he was already ahead 70%.
Yeah.
And like 50% just a first choice.
Wow. And that's a formidable mountain to climb. But I want you to keep in mind, and I want the viewers to keep in mind. Let's look at this. I believe it was the third Prime Minister debate where it was me and Taiko, where he started with the 2/3 majority. You remember that, I'm sure. And by the end of the debate, I had reached my majority to well beyond that. So keep that in mind, viewers. You know, there could be some curveballs, but at this point, I think, you know, if we're looking at the candidates he's running against, I believe Taiko, you know, stands the greatest chance to win this debate. What do you?
I think that like you have comparing the public speaking ability of Taiko to the other candidates and comparing Taiko's speaking ability to yours. I think that you probably have a bigger, a much better public speaking ability than Taiko did. But Taiko, compared to other candidates on this stage, I don't think it's really going to be that much of a gap. So I think there's going to be less of an impact from this debate.
Absolutely. And on top of that, think about it. That was 2 years ago. Taiko is 2 years older now, and you know, after chatting with him today, I mean, he sounds great. He's done a great job at focusing on his public speaking. And I don't know who's really helped him with that, but whoever has, I mean, I think it's gonna serve him well. I think it's gonna serve him very well in this debate. I'm interested to see, you know, compared to the other candidates, I think the most person that poses the greatest threat in terms of their speaking ability is Etho. You know, Etho has always been, you know, a great speaker. Everyone's always loved listening to and talking to Etho. And I think as, you know, we watch this debate, it'll be interesting to watch the dynamic between Taiko, Etho, and Ray. I think those are the main front runners. Not to put anyone aside, but I think, you know, if we're looking at the poll numbers, you know, Taiko and Ray are really the big dogs in this.
Yes, I think that Etho's biggest challenge is going to be convincing people that he will be active.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time he has run for these positions, and then after, if he didn't win, he wasn't very active. So he's going to have to make a big effort to convince people he will be active.
And I mean, that's been since day one. I mean, Etho has always run for. You remember it was me and Etho in the vice emperor election. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, back when I was new, and I still stood a formidable opponent to him. So it'll be interesting to see how he does answer to a lot of those concerns. And then, you know, one person I think we're not talking about, which we should be talking about, is Jambon. During the interviews, I thought he did very well. I was, you know, personally impressed by his responses to each of the questions, and I think, you know, we're not talking about him enough, but I think he does stand a formidable opponent to the other opponents.
Yeah, definitely. If he makes a good effort and he does a good job at this debate, he does have a good chance.
Yeah, definitely. Think about this. Jam has been running for these positions for years. Like, he's been running for prime minister since the first prime minister election. So keep that in mind as he continues to run. And then, you know, I'll be interested to see how he answers to some of these questions. Because remember, during one of the debate between me and Taiko, he had to use text to speech because he couldn't talk. But he has a mic now, and, you know, he's got a beautiful voice. And so listening to Jambon now, I think he stands a very good chance.
Definitely.
Now, we do have an update. It appears that Ball of Emotions has joined the lobby, and I feel it's only fair that we give him an opportunity to speak on an interview. What do you think?
That's a great idea. All right, I'll leave you to that.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Dan, for joining me in this panel before the debate. I'll be joining with Ball of Emotions here shortly.
Thank you,
Ball of Emotions, how are you doing? It's a kilometer. What the fuck is a kilometer?
You're very quiet.
Yeah, you are very quiet.
Hello.
It would fit. I hate the fucking.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
What's your username in Minecraft? I'll TP you to me.
The battle ramen.
Oh, wait. I will bring you over here.
He's rigging the election.
All right. All right. Where'd you go? Oh, cool.
Right here.
All right. First of all, how you doing today? What was your name?
Very good.
I feel like I've known you before. What was your name?
Breaking
prior-
and entering.
Josh. It's Swag on Discord.
Swag.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say you're relatively new to the community?
No, I've been here for a good solid 2-3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I just only really did stuff for Landing Cove.
That's awesome. Respect for that, man. Like I
Yeah.
understand, the value that it holds in focusing on your own district. And that's something that I love to do. You know that with San Prisco.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll get a little started on this and speaking about your qualifications. Running for Prime Minister is a big job. What qualifications do you believe you have that would make you great for this position?
Well, besides the other candidates, a lot of these people have ran before for a lot of these positions. Taiko, he's been in primary positions before. Ray, all these other people. But I've been doing it for a while. Not in Spook Vooper, of course, but other places. I've been in positions of power and really good positions of power. I've ran different areas of different communities. And all of them have done really well. No sort of dramas. And personally, I feel like I have the qualifications for this job more than other people due to the fact that I don't have the SV drama that y'all do. So it's more of like a new person.
You just called us out. You called me out, especially on that one.
Yeah, because there's a lot of drama between y'all, and I really only care about fuck Alligator, and that's all.
Well, I respect that. There's a certain admirability to not really giving a fuck. So respect for that. But I guess if we're gonna start on to your platform, what would you do to encourage and nourish the economy? What specific would you do?
Well, with this brand new economy that we have, it's with this brand new economy we have, everything's very new. I really do encourage corporations to sort of build up on their own. A lot of capitalism. So, yeah. Sorry, that was just my
That's your assistant.
My assistant, my intern.
Your assistant. Your intern. So is your intern influencing your things? Are you cheating? Are you cheating? Just kidding. But that's awesome. And thank you for that answer. But I'm gonna continue. Okay, so I would venture to say you're not the most well known person on this debate stage. Tell the Vooperian people a little bit more about yourself.
Well, my name, of course, is Swag, and my Discord is, of course, Ball of Emotions. But I like I said, I've been here a long time. I love Spook Vooper. Okay, we all love Kobe. We all do, even if you don't admit it. Like I said, I've been here for a while. I mainly worked in Landing Cove as I was on the council. I ran what we call them, like training drills or whatever. It was basically like a video game training, simulation training drills against our enemies. Organize that so that we would be the most ready nation there, other than other nations. We were the most combat ready people. So if there was someone a threat to the glorious lands, we would be able to be there right on the dot.
Definitely. Well, that's very interesting. I may have to disagree and say that San Prisco is more, but I would be biased in saying that. But I mean, thank you for telling us more about yourself. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, let me collect my thoughts. So, I'm sorry, I was a bit rushed. I had an emergency. Don't
worry about it. Hey, emergency is emergency. Family comes first. We all understand.
Of course. But yeah. So, like I said, personally, I love money. I love money. Everyone loves money. But
That's funny.
You know what I love more than money?
What?
Not taking people's money.
Yeah, that's funny.
You know, I personally encourage businesses to grow and prosper in our great nation. You know, of course,
yeah.
if they're not a nation, but that's not a question.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Ball of Emotions, for taking the time to join us for this quick little interview.
Of course.
Sounds good. And up next, we're going to have a little bit of talking with Kobe before we begin the debate. Thank you. Spook Vooper. How you doing, Kobe? Cobster?
No. What is this thing from Petco?
Kobe?
Emma Wilkinson.
All right. Kobe appears to not be he's doing his own thing. But I'd like to introduce all of you to the debate stage down here on the debate stage, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about each and every one of these. All right, this is our beautiful debate stage. On the left, we have one of our first candidates, the candidate I just interviewed, that was Ball of Emotions. Next to Ball of Emotions, we have our next candidate, which will be Jambon. Jambon is the one with the cool little like flower wreath, I think. And then this one is Devin, but I don't think Devin will be making it today. We will we'll see that. And then next to him is BDD Shad, which will be speaking. And then next to him is of course Ray, Taiko, and Etho. I think this, in terms of the way they structured this, I think it's a little more biased towards this side in terms of the people and the power that'll be speaking. Mostly this side will be, I believe, the main front runners and speaking this. But of course, I would like to give all the candidates the opportunity. Listen, thank you, all of you, for watching so far and taking the time to listen to our pre-debate show discussions. I wish luck to all the candidates, and we will be back here shortly. Thank you so much for watching VSpan. This is Pope Francis signing off. Good evening from the Imperial Theater in San Francisco. I'm Pope Francis, former Prime Minister, as well as Kobe, the Emperor of Vooperia, and I welcome you to the first of the Prime Minister debates between all candidates for Prime Minister. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Prime Ministerial Debates. The Commission has designed the format for roughly 15-minute segments with 1-minute answers given to each candidate to answer the first question, and then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Candidates are allowed to rebut, but only for 30 seconds, and will request to speak with a button under their podium. All campaigns have agreed to these rules. No questions have been shared with any candidate. We aim to create a neutral and open stage for candidates to prove themselves. Tonight, Swag, Jambon, BDD Shad, Devin, Taiko, Ray, and Etho will debate and show the Vooperian people who deserves Vooperia's highest role. The audience here has promised to remain silent. No boos, cheers, or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise, except for right now as we welcome our candidates onto the stage. Please welcome our candidates. Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this light, so let's get going. All candidates will receive 1 minute to give their opening statements, beginning with Swag.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out tonight for the Vooper Prime Minister election. All right, my opening statement shall start off very, very strong with. I would just like to thank everyone here, all of my candidates who are running with me about with this whole thing. I would like to thank you all for coming. This has been very nice, very nice. You all of y'all are really good people. I would just like to say first. Second thing, of course, I would like to start off very strong with just talking about where we are today. Outside is very nice. We have a very beautiful city, but there's something very wrong with it. It's not strong enough. We are not strong. We are weak. We are a weak nation currently. I believe that truly we can, if we put the people first, ignore everything else. Put the people first, people's decision first. We can truly rebuild this beautiful, great nation and have Vooperia on top of everything. We will rebuild Vooperia way better because we will build back better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will be moving on to Jambon. Jambon, you have the mic.
Hello, this is my first PM election where I speak. I am a little less extreme than the candidate to my right, but I do agree with some of their points. I think we absolutely must build back Vooperia better, but I don't think that war is the way. I think we must focus on the rights of the district to accurately support the government. The districts must work to support us. They are the people. We are not the people. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. All right, now we will move on to Devin.
Hi, my name is Devin Linney, and I'm running for Prime Minister, obviously. Previously, before this, I was obviously a senator in the old Senate, and I was president at one point in the decanonized Senate of like summer of whatever year, 2019 or something stupid. And I've always been a member of the community. Now I believe that the government should be reformed to try to hamper the large big businesses that have taken over post the invasion to try to defend against the enemy. But I think the government should generally stop the overreach of these big companies. And I think we need to start taking control of our own finances and helping the poor and impoverished people of our nation to better our society into the greatest country to ever exist, period, point blank.
Thank you, Devin. Now we move on to BDD Shad. BDD Shad, it's your turn.
Hello, I am BDD Shad, and I will improve the economy. Whoopee.
Okay, thank you, BDD Shad. Now we move on to Ray.
Hello, Vooperia. My name is Raymond Newsman, running for Prime Minister of our great Vooperian nation. As the most recent person to hold the title of Prime Minister of Vooperia back in June 2022, my experience with the position speaks for itself. This is my first Prime Minister debate actually in person with the stage, but it is not my first Prime Minister election. Once I joined the server, it took me less than 10 months to go from a complete nobody, a white name with a green leaf by his name, to the holder of the most powerful position in the entire government. How many others can say the same, can say that they rose to prominence with such speed? How was it done? Was it luck? Was it endorsements by the powers that be? No, it was interest. And not just interest, but passion. And not just passion, but action. And not just action, but success. I joined the district of San Vooperisco at Pope's request, and I became a district rep. From there, I made my way up to governor, then imperial senator, then 2 terms as Speaker of the Senate, before getting election as the final Prime Minister of Vooperia. I am one of the few people in Vooperia to have served major positions in all branches of government as a senator, minister, prime minister, imperial court justice, and countless other positions during the Third Senate. I have used these last years in so many positions to cultivate a very diverse and very broad government skill set that is matched by few. I have the dedication, I have the activity, I have the interest, and after all this time, I still have the fresh perspective of relatively new Vooperia. We have a unique opportunity to start fresh with a new Vooperia. Join me and let us together take that opportunity so that Vooperia may grow and it may prosper. Raymond Newsman for Prime Minister, and thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Now, next, on to the second to final candidate, Taiko. You have the mic.
Thank you. Citizens of Vooperia, I stand before you today on a stage with many of Vooperia's best and brightest in a pivotal moment in our nation's history. We are gathered here today to engage in a debate that will shape the future of Vooperia. I am humbled by the opportunity to present my vision for our nation's first steps into SB2. Vooperia has never been faced with an election such as this before. An election where one person can build the foundation that their successors will live with months and years down the line. For this reason, we stand at a crossroads, preparing to face many challenges, but standing on the precipice of endless opportunities. As we embark on this critical journey, we must choose a leader who can lay the foundation for generations to come, one who has faced these challenges before and who has forever remained resilient in the face of hardship, one who understands the community's successes, one who understands the community's struggles. For this reason, I ask that you choose to put me in the position of Prime Minister. I ask that you trust me as the architect who will build many of our first laws. I ask that you put your trust in my years of lawmaking experience. I ask that you trust that a better Vooperia is possible. As your Prime Minister, I will ensure that our legal system from the Senate to the courts is rock solid. I will build a system of government that gives you, the citizens, the greatest chance of success in SV2. I know that you've been waiting for the day when you can finally mine resources, create companies, and trade stocks as much as I have. That is why, during my tenure as Prime Minister, I will attempt to fight against any legislation that lessens your freedom to do what you desire. As Prime Minister, I will have the opportunity to fill the benches of the Supreme Court with some of Vooperia's best and brightest legal minds. I intend to choose only the finest citizens from among your ranks, citizens who are active, citizens who are legally adept, citizens who knew how to choose the right from wrong. As a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, I know I have the skills to identify the perfect justices, but I also know you, the people, want a voice as well. This is why, before making any nomination of a justice to the Imperial Senate, I will get the approval of the people first. If the people don't want a justice, I don't either. To Vooperians, the challenges before us are formidable, but so too is our resolve. It is together that we will triumph over adversity and usher in a brighter future for Vooperia. I stand before you today not merely as a candidate, but as a dedicated servant of our nation, ready to turn your dreams into reality. Let us move forth and build a nation brick by brick that future generations will be proud to call their own. Our destiny awaits. Thank you.
Thank you, Taiko. Etho, it is your turn. Etho, it is your turn. Oh,
Hello, you got me?
Yep.
Hello, yes. Hi, well, firstly, I'd like to thank the people of Vooperia for coming to this debate. To hear out myself as well as all these other candidates, I'd like to thank you as well for coming out to provide the people of Vooperia with your platforms, your positions, and give people the opportunity to make a choice in this pivotal election. And then finally, I would like to thank both Pope and our Emperor for coming here to moderate this debate. Well, firstly, I'd like to, say that I have been in this wonderful community for years now. I've seen the rise and fall of several governments that we've had in this great nation, and I've been able to see where they've succeeded, where they've failed, and now that we're at the precipice of an opportunity to reform, to build something new, I am ready to get in there, roll up my sleeves, and do the work to make sure that the government that we build puts people first, puts the freedom of individuals first, and make sure that government serves as a tool to protect those rights, the natural rights that are enshrined in our Constitution, and not serving itself. There are two things that I'm going for with this campaign and what I seek to do in my prime ministership. Firstly, I am seeking to ensure that we have transparency and accountability in government. Our government needs to make sure that it respects the cornerstone of our democracy, which sits in the natural rights of our Constitution. When I get to the prime ministership, I will have the ability to put judges on this bench that will ensure that those liberties are put first and foremost in their rulings and decisions, and that will be my primary criteria for ensuring that the judges are not only qualified, but at the end of the day, they are going to make sure that we stay free. And this falls back into accountability. We need to make sure that we don't have government that's cozying up with the corporations in our country. When corporations and government collude with each other and scratch each other's backs, that's not capitalism, that is corporatism. And I firmly will stand on that and make sure that in my tenure as Prime Minister, we handle that directly. Secondly, I am in it to make sure that we build a large economy. I believe firmly that the backbone of our economy are the businesses, the individuals that are going about and building opportunities for both themselves and the people that they employ. So, in my prime ministership, I will have the opportunity to sit on the board that makes these decisions about how we run our economy. I am firmly in favor of making sure that our government stands out of the way, leads to the prosperity and growth and unlocking of our resources that we have in abundance in our districts, the free trade of them, and then finally making sure that we have a currency that is stable, that is strong, and is backed by real valid resources and not just the whimsical word of government. I thank you all again for coming to this stage today, and I look forward to speaking with you all on the issues. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for giving us your opening statements. I am Kobe Albright, also known as Spike Viper, your emperor. I have been the proud ruler of this nation for about 300 years now. Never gets old, trust me. And I have never seen such a qualified group of individuals to lead our nation. As you all know, the amount of imperial control has been slowly eroding as more democratic processes take hold. You will be responsible, whichever one of you wins the candidacy, for leading our nation in a direction of prosperity during a time when many issues plague us. We have so many questions currently floating around our national mind, such as where we need to push the economy with the resurgence of new markets, material rights between different districts, trading laws. We have a call for expansion into the galaxy when some are afraid that pushing too far will make us a target for the Tsar and put us back into danger. And these are questions that you are going to be responsible for answering and pursuing excellence for your constituents. So I'm going to have Pope here, or Tyler, quickly recap on how the rebuttals are going to work, because I think it's important you guys have that fresh in your mind, and then I will begin asking you questions. Hail Vooperia, and may the best candidate lead us.
May the best candidate lead us. Well said, Kobe. All right, let's take a second to talk about some rebuttals. So each of you candidates will have 30 seconds to rebut. But you can rebut by pressing the button on your stage. I want everyone to test theirs right now. You see the button? Yep, your thing should light up. Now we will either me or Kobe will recognize one person to do their rebuttal. So you may all maybe press your button at the same time, but we're going to choose who we recognize to speak. So that rebuttal will last 30 seconds. And yeah, that's how that'll work.
Question from me. Will the time 30 seconds be put up on the top when we recognize? Yeah. All right. Very good. All right. So obviously we are all very great at decorum and we are going to respect these rules. So as we roll into this first question, I want you all to get your best answers up front. Just a reminder for the audience that nobody knows the questions that are about to be asked. So there was no advantage here. We've been very secure in preparing these.
Yes.
All right, so we will start in linear order with swag. And our first question is going to be, what do you believe will be the biggest issues going into the SpookVooper 2.0 system, and how will you address them? You will have 1.5 minutes for this question, and we will start the timer once you begin speaking, Swag.
Thank you, Emperor Kobe. So, first off, the whole system of SpookVooper, it's very nice. I would like to give credit to all of the men in charge who built up the system, but I do see a very big issue with it, and that comes with the economy. With it being its own system, using its own sort of platform, I believe that there will be a lot of, or try to be a lot of, market manipulation, specifically within things like the stock market and factories. I feel very heavily that there'll be a lot of sort of almost like company towns being built, just taking over high resource areas, places rich in crystallite, just being absolutely absorbed into just this massive place of capitalism, just this massive aching core of mining. That's what I believe will end up happening. But there is ways to avoid this. I believe cracking down on who's doing these things, which groups, is a very good way to start it. First off, I would like to say, with this whole area, I feel with the whole stock market system, when it comes, it will mainly be used for manipulation due to the way that the old system used to work. The old system was very corrupt, I will say. Very corrupt and very inflated. Besides that, there is some other issues that I would like to say, not just with the stock market, but back to the whole corporations. Corporations themselves, as I said, everyone loves a little bit of money, but I feel as if there needs to be a taxing. There needs to be ways to control these companies, these corporations, so they don't get too large, so they don't get too powered, to where the point that, say, the VSS, the people can't control it, where the government can't control it, and they start taking over the government, putting our jobs in the hands of greedy people, taking the people's opinion and putting it to some rich pig who sits in his office. That would be all. I am done speaking.
All right, thank you for your response. Next up, we're going to have Jambon. Same question, 1 minute and 30 seconds. We'll start once you start speaking.
Hello. Would you mind reminding me of the question? Sorry, I've entirely forgotten. I was so enthralled by my candidates to write.
Yes, that is going to be, what do you believe will be the biggest issues going into SpookVooper 2.0, and how will you address them?
I see. The biggest issues is probably going to be the gamification of the economy and, to a degree, the politics of the entire situation of it. So, with the gamification, we're going to obviously lose some level of control. Like, it's honking, as it's colloquially known, has been gone for years at this point, has it not? When was that last the case? 2020? 2019? I think that was probably the peak of activity ever for SpookVooper. I think we have to appreciate that the biggest issue is going to be fundamental. Having the gamification, while brilliant for new players, is going to provide us some downside. I think the biggest problem to the economy is going to be the nature of the economy itself, and to combat this, we will have to work to provide alternate reasons for people to use the economy, to build on the infrastructure we have in place rather than use solely that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your response. Next up, once again, the question is, what do you believe will be the biggest issues going to SpookVooper 2.0, and what will you do to address them? And that's going to now be going to Devin. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
The biggest issue is going to be player retention and involvement. So if we want to be a politically involved server where you get a lot of people in, we kind of have to have a lot of government jobs. for everyone to be involved somehow, right? You need to have ministers and secretaries and deputies and senators, obviously. That's got to be a major factor, because no one's going to want to be RPing in a government RP if they're not in the frickin' government, right? Everyone has to have a job in the government. I believe that's our main issue going forward.
Are you yielding your time now?
Devin is pre-recorded, that's all.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right. So next up, we're going to have BDD. Same question. What do you believe will be the biggest issues going to Spook Vooper 2.0, and how will you address them? 1 minute and a half, and go.
Probably bugs with the website, and I will just tell Jacob. Yeah.
All right. Well, short and sweet. We'll go on to the next candidate. That's going to be Ray. What do you believe will be the biggest issues going into Spook Vooper 2.0, and how will you address them? You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
The timer isn't restarted. Oh, there we go.
It restarts once you start talking.
So I feel like all the candidates to the left, they all raise good points. They're all right. Government, politics, economy, these are all important. But I feel like they are missing what the real crux of the issue is, the real primary factor that affects these sort of things. And it's that if we have a bad economy hurts, bad politics hurts, poor government hurts, but low activity kills. None of these things, no matter how well the economy is designed, no matter how well the government is designed, no matter how much of this is well designed, how much it works, how well it's put together, how engaging it is, none of that matters if there aren't people in the system, if there aren't people involved in the system, if there aren't people running the system, if there aren't people, if there aren't people who are in the system, it won't work properly. And we need to focus on getting people in, because especially now that we're moving to the new Valor software, and now that we're moving people over, we need to make sure that there's actually people there, because this will not work if there's only 10 or 15 active people. It's the same problem we had in the previous Senate, where there was just there, even half of the Senate wasn't active. There were 3 active people, and it just didn't work. And the Senate was like, okay, let's fix this. Let's fix the government. Let's fix the economy. They keep doing this. It keeps working, but it doesn't work because there aren't people in the system. Good government if there's no one in it. So one of the candidates to my right, they said that we need people in the government, but we also need people out of the government, because the government can't govern if the entire active population is in the government, because then there's no one being governed, and the government can't govern if there's no one to govern. So we need to focus on activity. We need to focus on retention. We need to focus on making sure there are actually people in the system, because the system will only work if there are people actually in it, actually playing it, actually reviewing it, actually making a community out of it. That's work. That's I yield.
All right, thank you for your response. So next up is going to be Taiko. Do I need to rehash the question? I've said it 5 times now, so hopefully.
No, I've got it.
All right, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
All right. So I believe, I definitely agree with the issues stated by the candidates to my right. I think one issue that hasn't been pinpointed quite yet is that we're going to face quite a few issues with legislation in the early days. We're going to have all sorts of resources and stocks going around. There's not going to be a single law talking about that. So we're going to need to quickly come up with a bunch of legislation, come up with new ideas to legislate and regulate these areas, make sure everything works as we want it to do. So basically need to organize everything, get it all working together, then fight against any wrongdoing that may happen in relation to resources and the economy. And that's something that we have viewed happening many, many times before when we have had stock markets previously, and we're going to need to fight against it again with a strong Supreme Court who's efficient. It'll be y'all. Yield.
All right. So next up, last but not least, is going to be Ethosine. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you. Now, I believe that everyone on this stage has kind of danced around touching different points of the issue that's at hand. I think holistically, all of these things are interplaying with each other in a way that we need to be understanding of. Um, it's comprehensively the case that, if you have a government system, an economic system that's engaging, you're going to drive engagement with your player base, your citizenry that have an interest in getting involved. And like was said before, you can't just have government, because if you have government and strictly government, where is there for there to be an economy that thrives, people who are interested in business, in industry, people who want to drive prosperity for our people? You can't just have a government system and that be it. And government jobs are, quite frankly, when it comes down to the ministries, not going to be as engaging as trying to use the um, resources that we have at hand and to provide services through government through non-governmental entities, such as, I would even say VTech is a great example of a company which has kind of shown itself to be um, engaging for people in the economy. I think that if we look to say, what's the issue with the stock market when we want to go into this? Well, issues with prior stock markets are that the stocks have not had tied in value, and when there is any sort of market which has subjective value in the sense that it did with prior systems, it's going to be traded back and forth in ways that are not productive for the economy. So we need to make sure that we go into a new system of economic growth which ties in real value with the resources that we have, as well as players who are engaged in trying to do other services, whether that be news. We've had wonderful news outlets before that have done amazing jobs of providing seriously well produced content, and I have serious faith in the people in our community to do that. I also think that one of the key things we're going to need to do is make sure that government does not stand in the way of that progress. Yes, it's important to make sure that businesses and government don't collude. I think we've seen enough of that. And as Prime Minister, I would go about making sure that the relationship between government and and businesses are not, too cozy to the point where it becomes a corporatocracy. But I think that it's important that we go about ensuring growth through interesting activity in both, without getting them too cozy with each other. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay. Thank you for that, Etho. I'd just like to remind the candidates that if they wish to disagree with his statement or if they wish to add on to his statement, they can press the button on their thing and rebut. It appears that we do have a rebuttal from Ray. Go ahead, Ray. You have 30 seconds.
All right, so I would like to rebut both Etho and Taiko, the two people who spoke before me. So I'm going to start with Etho. So he discusses at length the economy, talks about why it's important. And I will admit that the economy, especially the new one, it's been so long since we've had one, is very important. And he even touches, like he reaches into, citizens doing things like news and stuff. But he draws that back to the economy, which is not the right attitude we should be going for. As I said, it's a matter of activity. Like, you can make a good economy system, you can make stocks with inherent value, you can do these things, but your first number one priority should be that there are actually people in the system using these ideas. And to respond to Taiko, I would like to say that he also discusses legislation and getting things in order, but that's a very short-term goal. I mean, the PM term is going to be quite long. It's going to be a very long term with many things. And we're looking for long-term goals. We're not looking for what am I going to do as legislation in the very beginning. We need to know, like, what are your long-term goals? How are you going to grow
You have
the
3
country?
seconds.
Not just in the beginning.
All right, thank you. Sorry for cutting you off, but I have to enforce the rules. All right, so if we go back and forth on rebuttals forever, this is going to be a long time. But since you two were directly named, I'm going to allow Taiko to first respond, and then we'll have Etho respond afterwards. We're not going to go back and forth, though. Only one rebuttal to rebuttal is going to be allowed. All right, get 30 seconds on the clock for Taiko.
I would first like to start off by saying that my opponent, Raymond Newsman, seems to have a fundamental misunderstanding of how long the PM term is. Only a month and a half, which is only slightly longer than that of a senator, which is not that long. I also do not currently see the need for me to run for a second term past that. My primary goal is to get things in order, and then I intend to let someone else run who is better suited for the longer term haul. I'm an organizer, I'm a problem solver. I know I can solve those early problems, and that's all I have to say.
All right, and 30 seconds for Etho.
Well, Ray, I would like to say I don't believe we disagree on the matter of activity. I think that it's crucial that we try to spur activity in our community to make sure that there's engagement with both the economy and the government. But I think kind of the angle that I'm approaching it from is that we need to have systems that look enticing to people, prospective players or citizens who will look at this and say, this is something that's exciting, something that's interesting. I want to get involved. These things look like something that, are worth putting my effort, my time into, because a lot of these things do end up being time consuming. And I think that it's important that we design systems that people have a genuine interest in getting involved in. So while I don't think we disagree on the matter of activity, I think that at least in my case, I would put more emphasis on the necessity to build systems that are engaging for new prospective members of the community. I yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you, Etho. We're going to be moving on to question number 2. And for the sake of fairness, we are going to be starting from the right this time. So if you want to rebut, remember that you do have your buttons available. This question is going to be a little bit more about executive action rather than just stating problems. So please keep that in mind. It is 1 minute to discuss what you will do in your first days as Prime Minister. If you can give a specific timeline, like day 1, I will do this, that would be actually very helpful. All right, so Mr. Ethos Sign, what will you do in your first days as Prime Minister? You have 1 minute.
Well, I think what's important about my first day in office will be to meet with two groups of people. Firstly, meet with the Senate, and then secondly, I'm going to meet with our central bank. With meeting with the Senate, I want to be able to discuss the guidelines that we're going to put forward. Going into our new government, talking about what the role of government is going to be in this new Senate, this new administration, making sure that we both have an understanding of where we wish to bring government, how we can make government work for the people, and ensure that when we go about making new legislation going forward to set up these guidelines for how we'll operate going forward, that is liberty oriented, liberty minded, because above all else, I would make myself out to be the most pro liberty candidate unabashedly, that I believe is first and foremost when it comes to the legislation we're going to be going about engaging with. And as with the central bank, I look forward to meeting with Jacob and discussing economic policy going forward to ensure that we have a strong and stable currency. And then going forward into the next couple of days, work to bang out an economic plan that will ensure that and ensure that we are not overly involving the government in our economy and allow for there to be room for business to thrive going forward. I yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you for your thoughts. All right, Taiko, what will you do in your first days as Prime Minister? You have 1 minute.
As I've mentioned many times before, I want to start getting work done on the initial legislation that we will need. So that means things like election laws, laws to run for Senate, requirement laws, laws pertaining to resource management, all sorts of things across the spectrum of laws. We need to get everything in order. We need to figure out how we're going to operate from the start. And we need to prepare for the inevitable chaos that will follow with the introduction of the resource and economy systems, as we've seen many times before. There's not much time to dilly-dally on that front. Initially, we are going to be basically... I'm running senator elections right now, and initially everyone's probably going to have a shorter term, I believe. We need to get everything done quickly and effectively initially. Get everything working. That is all. You had my time.
All right, thank you. Next up, we are going to have BDD. What will you do in your first days as Prime Minister?
Ask around for someone who wants to be a Supreme Court justice and just see what happens. Because things need to be done and I cannot do everything.
All right, thank you. And next up, Devin, what will you do in your first days as Prime Minister?
So on my first days as Prime Minister, what I'm going to do is, first, obviously, I'm going to find a staff of the most able and brilliant people of Spook Vooper, the most loyal and trustworthy people that have been around for a long time. Obviously bipartisan because there's no parties yet. So really, it's going to be a governmental reshuffle. I'm going to figure out who is on my side in my quest to try to take on the corporations, like which senators. I'm going to find allies, and I'm going to start drafting legislation to start to handle the issues that face us, start to incentivize welfare and so forth, as well as increasing the size of the government, because as I said previously, a large issue should be focusing on expanding the government to involve more players.
All right, next up, we are going to have Ray. You have 1 minute. What are you going to do in your first days as Prime Minister?
All right. Well, I think that there's a lot of things that are going to be needed to do. As Taiko said, there are only 6 weeks of term, and this is probably going to be easily going to be the most significant PM term because it's the first one. It's laying the groundwork. It's starting everything off. And my big selling point here is, especially in the previous Senate, we know that I was a very big person on multitasking. For almost the whole Senate, I had several different government positions that I managed simultaneously. And in our first PM term, we're going to need someone who can do a lot of things all at once because there is simply not enough time in the term for us to do things one at a time, to do legislation and then to do Supreme Courts and then to do economy. We can't do these one at a time. We need to do them all at once. So I will be doing those things all at once. And I'm also going to introduce a system of award ceremonies. Like every couple of months, we might have an award ceremony to celebrate people who are doing a good job and reward them for their efforts. And that's all.
All right, so next up is going to be Jambon. You have 1 minute. The next person is going to be Jambon. You have 1 minute.
Oh, sorry, my microphone muted. This time round, I don't want to do very much at the very beginning. I want to just get the government moving as fast as possible, and then find the problems with what we've done so far. I know this may sound insane, even absurd, but there is reason. Because every time we've started the government this time, we have ended up completely having to redo everything every time we get to the second term. I want to just keep us moving rather than getting stuck in our track like we usually do. That's all.
All right, so next up we are going to have Swag. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So I don't want to rehash everything my friends here, my other candidates here have said. I would like to immediately start off by just questioning what BDD had said, as I didn't understand it. You didn't say anything. He just spoke just right off his mind. He didn't have any sort of meat to his conversation. Like, what is your plans? Because personally, my plans is just to get the government running first, because we don't have anything. We have nothing. We have nothing here. There is nothing set up so far. I mean, yeah, we have a couple senators, but that's all. We need to get everything ready as fast as possible right now. That's all.
All right, as some of you know, two of our candidates here are pre-recorded, and one of which is BDD, so we're going to see if we can get a text transcript of a response to that, and if not, we'll move on to the next question. You can still respond to them, of course. It's just going to be hard to get a response. Oh, he can speak. Okay, well, if he is able to speak, let's get him on a mic. Oh, he can't. Okay. BDD, would you like to just type a response to that and I will read it out loud? Or would you like to just move on? In the meantime, can we cue up some elevator music? All right, Etho is going to review Devin. In the meantime, let's give Etho 30 seconds.
I did just briefly want to speak on what Devin had said about enlarging government as a means to engage more people in the government and in other things involved in Spook Vooper. Like I'd said before, the economy is going to be crucial for getting people involved, and I'm skeptical of using government as the primary motivator for activity on Spook Vooper in general going forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And BDD did get us a response. He said, senators have the ability to propose legislation, and people can propose legislation through their senators. And if you truly care about Vooperia, you will work on legislation with me. I will obviously try to make legislation, but I do not know exactly how it has to be done with the new systems. All right, and with that, I believe we went through everyone, unless someone wants to correct me there. So we are ready for question number 3. Wow, this is taking some time, isn't it? All right, question number 3. These questions are specifically targeted to Taiko and Ray. As staff members, what is your justification for running for Prime Minister when you are breaking the staff roleplay separation? You will have 1 minute to respond, and we will start with Ray.
All right. Well, that's a very excellent question. And yes, as we are both staff, that is a very big concern. I know people have talked about in the past about the separation between staff and role play, and I do agree that is important. But I also agree that I have a very long history of being unbiased because I've been in staff for a long time. In the previous Senate, I was also the roleplay authority. I literally settled roleplay disputes for like everyone. Other than the Emperor, I was the highest authority on like lore and making decisions and all of that. And I mean, it was not controversial. I was unbiased. I didn't try to use the decisions to benefit myself. I was very fair as a moderator and as the RP authority. So I think I have a long history, a long presence, like a long story of being very unbiased when it comes to sharing RP and out of RP positions. I yield.
All right, thank you. So, Taiko, same question to you. What are you going to do about that staff roleplay separation? You have 1 minute.
If I'm being honest, I'm not sure of the big concern about that. I've been Imperial Election Manager since, 2019? I have run effectively every single election. There's not been a single concern about me ever rigging the elections or ever any issue with that. And then the one other time there was a different election manager, he immediately got put out for trying to rig elections or something along those lines. And I believe I've shown that I am incredibly unbiased. I do not abuse my authority, and I don't think there should be any concern at all that I'll be staff and the Prime Minister concurrently. As I've been President and staff, I've been Prime Minister and staff before, I've been Chief Justice and staff, and there's never been any issue with that. I yield.
All right, thank you both. Is anyone going to rebut either of those? You do have a opportunity. This is a contentious subject, so I expected someone to hit a button, but I guess if not, we will go on to the next one. All right. Well then, we are going on to another full group question here, although some people may have more of a reason to answer this one than others. You will have 1 minute to explain how are you going to commit to being active for the full length of your term. Do you commit to this? And can you hold yourself to this commitment? All right, we are going to be starting with swag for this one. You are going to have 1 minute. Okay, it looks like we're going to have to actually skip over swag for this and go on to Jambon.
I can definitely be active for at least my term, hopefully forever. Although, hopefully for as long as Spook Vooper survives, which should be as long as possible. I can definitely promise to be active in the time period, the time of the interim. I've been active in the past. I can keep going. It's fine. I'm active currently in many places. I'm sure I can manage here as well. Thank you.
All right, short and sweet. Let's go on next to Devin.
Well, as you know, it's a busy year going ahead into my senior year, but we're entering the summer, and I believe it's a good position to have as generally, I believe I can maintain activity. I've been proven in the past to be able to do so, and even if I wasn't as active when we were washed up gamers or whatever, it was mostly because the community was sort of tapering off. But now that there's a more revitalization of the system and the engagement, I am totally willing to stay active. I'll be on as much as everyone needs me, as much as the Prime Minister needs to.
All right, thank you. And next up, we will have BDD.
To the person who asked this question, I have spent a lot of time talking to Jacob, and that's why I was active before it even started, so I should be active after. Boom.
I like the little boom there. All right, after that, we are going to have Ray.
All right, so there. I mean, this is an excellent question, and of course, my big thing earlier was about activity. Obviously, the leading government member of the whole government obviously needs to be active, and I don't just think I'm active. I don't just know I'm active. I can prove I'm active. I was active throughout the entire Third Senate. I maintained high levels of activity. When we had the old leaderboard, I was consistently in the top 5. I reached the first place spot many times. I was active for a whole year almost without interruption. I did a lot of work like the MOJ presentation to the Senate, the newspaper that no one asked me to. I just did it because I wanted to, because I allotted time for Vooperia. It wasn't just because of my obligations. I chose to be active because I wanted to. And I believe that there's no question that I can be completely active for my term and far beyond that in Vooperia.
All right, thank you. Next up is going to be Taiko, who we all know is never online. That's the joke because you have no life, Taiko. I love you, though.
Yeah. I don't think there's many concerns about me being inactive at any point during my term. I've been active since February 2019 or something along those lines. I have probably sent a message every single day since then. Even when I've been cooed, when I've been removed from staff, I've still stayed in the server, I've still talked, never left the server of my own accord or been banned. I don't think there's a single concern from me or from probably anyone else that I can remain active and responsive as Prime Minister. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And finally, we are going to have Etho.
Well, I understand that this is a large concern for many in terms of my candidacy, and I would like to open with a firm, succinct answer to that. I give you my word that I will be there and I will make it happen. I don't give my word lightly, and I, going into this, have made sure that I could make the commitment to be present, to be active, and I understand that there was a lull in my activity, but for those of you who were, dinosaurs like myself in the community, I've have a history of great activity in the past when it comes to government, the economy. I have the experience with it, and I'm looking to use that going forward with great activity going forward in creating our new government and economic system.
All right. Is anyone going to rebut any of the people, or are we going straight to the next question? All right. Looks like we're going straight to the next question. We have question number 5. This one's going to be fun. What is your opinion on the roles of political parties? Do you believe they are a positive or negative influence? And would you join a party? And are you planning on starting your own? We're supposed to have a minute and a half for this, but we're having time concerns. So I'm actually going to cut this question down to 1 minute. And we are going to start with Etho.
Now, I believe that political parties serve an important purpose in allowing people to organize around concerns that they have and effectively campaign for them to be addressed in government. I definitely think that in the respect of activity, it's engaging. People are excited about that. I think that the primary concern I would have about parties is some sort of duopoly to arise from that. But given the diversity of thought in Vooperia, I have no concerns about the rising of several prominent political parties. With the inclusion of one that I plan to start myself, irrespective of my success in this candidacy, that is focused on making sure that there's liberty put first in government. So I think that so long as we have a commitment to ensuring that these parties do not dominate and shut out other people, I think that they're a good thing for activity. I yield my time.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Next up is going to be Taiko.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, what is your opinion on the role of political parties? Do you believe they are positive or negative? Would you join a party, and are you planning on starting your own? 1 minute. Go.
Currently, I'm pretty neutral on parties. I've seen them have positive benefits, allowing people to rally together behind one unified cause. I've also seen parties be the biggest cause of drama. They've caused many problems. At our current point as it stands, I think it would be best to probably not encourage political parties, and I'm not currently planning on starting one. Later down the road, months down the line, my opinion on that may change. Currently, I believe it is best that we remain independent and work each other without concern to parties when working on legislation and improving Vooperia. Yield.
All right, thank you. And next up is going to be Ray on that topic.
All right. Well, I would agree with most of what Taiko said. I think his position on political parties is a very good one, and I am also pretty neutral on parties. I don't specifically like them and specifically dislike them. Like Taiko, I've seen them do good things. I've seen them do very bad things. I believe, especially in the beginning, it is important that people making the government, making the country from the ground up, is actually like nonpartisan. I think I would pass a law to ban or restrict political parties for the first like month of the server, just so that we can do things as a proper united front. And then once things are setting up, then we can get things done. I might not specifically ban political parties, but I would like discourage them in the beginning. I don't know if banning parties is, I think it might be illegal actually, but
All
I would
right,
definitely.
you just got 2 rebuttals there, so we're gonna get into that. First is going to be Taiko with a rebuttal.
First of all, I would like it to be very clear that I do not support banning political parties. If people want to make a political party and they think that's the best thing they can do and they have enjoyment out of that, I think that's great and they can go right ahead with it. I absolutely oppose banning political parties, however, I do not currently plan on joining one or making my own.
All right, now Etho, I know you also wanted to have a rebuttal. Etho?
Yes, my apologies. I didn't realize I was muted. Now, as a unabashedly pro-liberty candidate, I'm concerned by the prospect of attempting to restrict or ban speech through political parties. That's the primary concern that comes to mind when I hear that sort of proposal being brought. So I think that it's important that we don't do that for that sake. But also, again, activity is going to be a potential benefit from political parties. I think that for a pro-activity candidate, it's important to keep that in
Out
mind.
of time. All right. So just as I'm gonna allow a response again from Ray. So go ahead. 30 seconds.
Now, of course, I take their considerations into account. I believe they have a point. I would obviously not do anything illegal or that would restrict, speech. It was just, an idea, and I would definitely not ban them outright. I would restrict them. I would just not give people incentives, because it's very important that we start a united front in the beginning when we're founding stuff. But after everything is set up, I would absolutely relax parties. I might not create one, but I would definitely, join one if I agreed with them. But I just want to make sure that in the beginning we have a united front for making Vooperia better before people start branching off.
All right. So, because we are on a topic that affects basically now the question of liberties has come into focus, I'd like everyone who would commit to enshrining the right to create political parties in their platform, if you would stand on your light really quickly, just so that we can see where specific candidates stand. If you would place no restrictions on parties.
Can you repeat the question?
If you would place no restrictions on political parties as a part of your platform, stand on your light, just so that we can see which candidates are committed to that. No restrictions. All right, so it looks like we have Etho, Taiko, and BDD have all committed to that. Thank you. So next up, we are going to go to BDD.
There are both good and bad things about political parties. One of the good things is that some people that may have similar stances on political issues can get somewhere in government, because they can get some united front that is like an average of those things. But it can also lead to something like the US Republican Party, the GOP and stuff, and that's not very nice.
All right. Next up, we are going to have Devin.
I believe parties in general are partially necessary in a system of democracy because people will always group together to support policies they support, and parties help the voters understand what each candidate basically agrees with, which makes the life of the voter a lot easier. It makes the life of the government a lot easier. Parties generally also bring a lot more activity to the RP, in my belief, because you also have party politics. Like in the Libertarian Party, we always had arguments and stuff, and people trying to rise their way through the ranks. You wouldn't see that if you didn't really have that. And you also have political games like trying to take more seats for your party or supporting specific candidates and fundraisers and so forth, which is a lot more interesting. I believe parties are beneficial to the RP in general.
All right. Next up, we are going to have Jambon. I know you wanted to respond, so we're going to give you an extra 30 seconds so you can also respond.
So, earlier, when I wanted to ask you a question, I wanted you to elaborate on what do you mean by parties. Do you respect parties as a social or political institution? Because it's absolutely unacceptable for parties to be a political entity in Spookvooper for perhaps ever, hopefully forever. I object to them fundamentally. Parties as anything more than a social entity cannot be acceptable in Spookvooper in its current state. We cannot have them as a legal entity. They've never worked. They've always harmed the RP. They take us out of the main server. There has never been a benefit to them. We should not allow them as a political entity.
So, as a clarification there for our audience, would you be opposed to the system on the website where you can create a group, which is a party, and it shows the color around your profile picture?
I say maybe, but I don't think that should have any influence on the national government at the least. Maybe districts, but absolutely not on a national level. Sorry. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your clarification there. And next up is going to be Swag. Who is not here anymore? Can we please remove them from the stand so I remember that they're not here? Dig a hole under them or something. All right. Next question is going to be a critical one. As Prime Minister, your job is going to be nominating those to preside over the Supreme Court. How would you like the Supreme Court to be set up? And is there anyone in particular that you have in mind for positions right now? We are going to start with Jambon.
Sorry, would you mind repeating? I was talking to the audience.
Yes, as the first Prime Minister, your job will be to oversee the nominations to the Supreme Court. How would you like the Supreme Court to be set up, and is there anyone in particular you have in mind for the positions?
I haven't got anyone in mind particularly currently. I would like to open it to the whole server for people who could be candidates. No activity criteria or anything. I'd like some past experience, but it's not required. Really any. I would like to make sure everyone gets to speak on who they would have for their Supreme Court justices. Possibly also maybe a vote. That's it.
All right, thank you. Next up is going to be Devin.
The Supreme Court? Well, personally, I wouldn't mind. See, we don't really have a court system. If this was a real government, I would want basically a promotion system where you have to be like a federal judge for so and so years. But in SV2, I don't know really how we're going to do it. I mean, I assume the Prime Minister will nominate and then the Senate will approve. I don't really have anyone specific I have in mind for a Supreme Court justice. That's going to be a part of my first few days in office, obviously, assembling the best and brightest staff. And that's a large part of my campaign, is the fact that I'm not some monolithic person that will fix all of our problems. Rather, the people that I assemble will be. We as a collective, a group, will. And overall, the issue of the Supreme Court, we're going to have to handle it one step at a time. I mean, to be honest, I don't know how it's going to be set up currently.
We are aware that the pre-recorded messages may go slightly over time, but they are not able to respond to anyone else, so I don't think they really have any advantage, so we're going to allow it. All right, BDD is going to be next.
Like I said before, first of all, I'm going to need people that want to do it. So if there's not even 5 people that want to do it, I don't know who it's even going to be. Whatever. How would I like it to be set up? I don't even know how I would like it to be set up. I said in my post it was going to be broadly political. That's about it. I don't know anything else. Oh man. Put all of this in the recording. Don't cut anything out.
All right, next up is going to be Ray.
Well, I think that the choice of a Supreme Court justice is a very important one, and I would definitely give citizens input. I would not just make decisions on my own. I would definitely interview candidates, like I myself was interviewed when I first got a minister position, which was over a year ago now. I would definitely interview prospective candidates to make sure they had what it takes. I would get citizen feedback. And I would also try to balance the courts so that the very capable people were balanced between the Supreme Court and the other courts to make sure that we didn't have a court where there's just not enough people who can actually get the job done. So I would definitely take a lot of time thinking about it.
All right, thank you. Next up is going to be Taiko.
As the only person on this stage who was previously a Chief Justice, I believe I am uniquely qualified to discuss what makes a good justice and what makes a bad justice. I've discussed things such as activity, legal knowledge. Activity is one of the really big things. If a justice is consistently unable to show up to votes and things like that, they're not going to be a good justice, and we can't have them on the court. I only intend to pick people who I have interviewed and chosen personally, and who have passed the public approval test. I yield.
All right, I see that Jambon wants to respond to that.
I feel that a lot of your arguments are stemming from your seniority. I feel like we need new blood in government, and the basis of your argument seems to be merely that you have been in most positions. I could make the exact same argument and we'd be on the same level. We should not be ruling based on who has been here for longer or in more things. We should be ruling based on who has more skill and who has more promise. Thank you.
All right, would you like to respond to that, Taiko?
Yes. If we're ruling only on seniority, and, well, you said you've been in many of the same positions as I have, I cannot once recall you being a justice, unless it was in the decanonized Senate or something along those lines. Because I have the most experience, I don't think that invalidates that I wouldn't be a good Prime Minister. Also note that I only intend to be Prime Minister for a short time at the beginning of the new government. I intend to move out of the way for additional new blood to make their way in.
All right, now it's going to go on to Etho.
Now, there are two criteria that I think are important when looking at who we want to put on the bench. Firstly, people who have experience. They are people that have the know-how and the knowledge to talk about the law, go through the law. And secondly, people who are committed to the natural rights we have enshrined in our Constitution. And there is one person I do have in mind to put on the court if I am the Prime Minister. If this person commits to upholding our natural rights and the Constitution above all else, I would nominate Taiko to the Supreme Court. He has the know-how and the knowledge.
All right, thank you. Some unity across the board here. You know we're all about unity in Vooperia. Now, I do have a question for all of you. We don't have very strict laws concerning multi-government roles yet. Please, if you are, and we're going to need a camera wide shot for this, by the way, if you are interested in taking on a court role in addition to a prime minister role, please stand on your podium. All right, so that is going to be Ray and Taiko. Both would be interested in taking on a second role in the Supreme Court. Now, I saw two lights come on when they stood there. That was, can you please press your buttons again, those of you who hit your lights? All right, I'm going to let Jambon speak first about that result.
I'd like you to clarify if you mean going for both positions simultaneously or wanting to have both at the same time.
At the same time, if you were to become a prime minister, would you still pursue?
I see. Thank you very much.
I'm going to assume that's a no from you then.
Yes, of course not.
All right, Etho, I think you probably actually want to speak on that.
Yes, I am concerned about the prospect of having people in multiple governmental roles. That fundamentally goes against the concept of separation of powers, which I think is critical to ensure that we have a representative government that's accountable to people and does not consolidate power within a single person. I think that people who are interested in this may have character, but absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I'm concerned with the precedent that sets.
All right, while we are on this topic, let's go a little bit bigger here because I think this is actually an extremely important topic. If you are planning on taking on any positions simultaneously with your prime minister position, does not matter if it's a minister seat, Senate, Supreme Court, please stand on your podium. All right, so now we have BDD on the stage. BDD, could you just clarify what that position is since we already know the other two? Senator of Old King. All right, Jambon, I see you hit your light there if you want to talk on this subject.
Once again, it's a clarification. Are we counting district-centric roles or only national roles for this?
Yes, any government roles on any level of government. So what are you interested in running for then?
Grand Doge of EK, as I would be either way.
So the only two candidates who are not planning on taking on another role, if I'm correct, then would be Ethosine and Devin. Devin isn't here to actually speak on that, so the only one we know for sure is Ethosine. Etho, I'll let you speak on that.
Well, I do also want to add that if I'm elected prime minister, I will pursue legislation to ensure the separation of powers is kept. I think that it's important that we have people that are active in government, but we need to not only ensure that separation of powers is kept, but also that we allow for opportunities for new members to get engaged in the government. And if we have prominent members that are seeking multiple offices, it restricts the opportunities for new members to become active in government.
All right, thank you. We have Ray who wants to speak on that.
I'd like to address what Etho just said. I agree that there are definitely things that I should think people should do at the same time. I believe someone to my rights wanted. I think it should be allowed. Senator, I think like Etho said, there's, especially in the beginning when we have few people, there should be definitely some limits on what people can take at the same time.
All right, and I see Jambon wants to speak.
I feel like if we were to have these strict laws against having multiple roles, they have to come in later in the period of the game. We cannot have them immediately at the start. Not all positions will be fillable. We need the government to move. We cannot simply wait for things to fill. Thank you.
All right. So let's go on to the next question. That was actually a fairly important one. I think we see one candidate definitely is standing out from the rest on this topic, while the rest of you have also brought out very good points. I'm not going to say which, way is correct. I'm just saying distinguishing you guys from each other is important to allow our populace to know what they believe in and who to vote for their beliefs. So next question is going to be, and this is kind of wrapping in. And remember, we drafted these questions beforehand. We didn't really expect this question to go in this direction. But what makes you stand out from the other candidates? And we will start with Etho.
Well, like I've said before, I put liberty first. I think that the natural rights enshrined in our Constitution are the core of how we should pursue government in Vooperia. I'm, committed to that when it comes to how we pursue legislation, how we go about putting people on the bench, but then also when it comes to how we look at our economy and how to ensure prosperity there. And I would set myself apart as the candidate who believes the best way to ensure prosperity is for government to get out of the way and to make sure that our currency is strong.
All right. Next up, we are going to have the same question for Taiko. What makes you stand out? The answer appears to be nothing. No, I'm joking. Taiko, you are muted. What makes you stand out? Okay, I think Taiko is attending to something else. So, Ray, what makes you stand out?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that make me stand out. I'd like to respond briefly to what Etho said. I believe that his obsession with sort of like a very small government is not really the right way to go. I know some people are advocating for a bigger government. I think government should be right size, government where it's needed, and no government where it's not. I just like to make my position on that clear. But as far as what makes me distinguished from the other candidates, I am one of the very few people here who's been in all branches of government. I rose to prominence very quickly. I've been a justice, I've been a senator, I've been prime minister, I've been a minister, I've been all of these things, and I have a very wide area of experience.
All right. Etho wanted to respond to that.
Well, to your point, I think that, government where it's necessary is where we need to approach that. And I think that a smaller government is optimal, especially given the size of our community. If we have a bigger government, if we have all these ministries and all of these things, we're not going to have people to fill these positions. We need to ensure that government does what it needs to do. But then when it comes to business and other things that are involved in our community, it needs to step out of the way to allow for people to thrive in those sectors as well. So we don't need big government.
All right, thank you. I saw Jambon wants to speak on this point too.
Sorry, I withdraw my rebuttal. Continue on.
All right, Taiko, I think you're back now. You're facing in the correct direction. So, what makes you stand out from the other candidates? All right, I thought wrong. We're going to be moving on to BDD.
Well, one of the candidates has been proven to be bad, and that is the pug. And the rest, I don't know what they've done. I mean, Ray is a good candidate. If you don't vote for me, vote for Ray. To be honest, yeah.
Wow,
that's about it.
Okay.
Well, one of the candidates has been proven to.
Oh. All right. So next up, we are going to have Devin.
I think everyone on the stage is pretty capable. Most of the people running here have been in the community for many, many years. I think me specifically is different because it's a different voice, a different point of view, one that we haven't seen in a very long time, one that we haven't seen really since Silly back in the old Senate. We have to take a look at what's happened, take a look at how the country's been run, and have to realize that it hasn't worked, right? The last couple governments have been all basically very pro big business, and it's been a long time since the last RP, but that's just a fact, right? The government has always been in collusion with the businesses, and it's about time that there's a different point of view for this country. And that's why I think I'm distinct from the other people on the stage. I won't necessarily say a better leader. I'm just a different kind of leader.
All right, thank you. Next up is going to be Jambon.
As opposed to all these radical extremes and sometimes fence-sitting coming from the candidates to my left, I am opposed to the excessive use of experience and age and all these radical movements. I'm a no-nonsense candidate. I want the government to be efficient and active as quickly as possible, and then I can move out. I don't care what happens to my position after the matter. I just hope it continues on as it goes. Thank you.
All right, I am going to replace question number 11 with one of my own because we've already touched upon what question 11 was. I'm going to turn this into a far more high stakes question, so make sure that you think out your response. With our new draft of the Constitution and Spook Vooper 2, we are bringing in military forces for districts. Historically, military forces have only been legal for the federal government for the purposes of countering the Tsar. Legislative changes allowing districts to field militaries means that those who are in charge of districts can use those militaries for their own purposes. While declaring war on another district is federally illegal, it will be your position as Prime Minister when the Emperor, myself, is not available to use federal forces, call up our troops, and potentially fight the districts within the Union. I'm aware the pre-recorded candidates cannot respond to this, but it is important, and BDD, you can write something to answer this that I will read. The rest of you, I'd like to know your thoughts of how you would use the military when you would step in against a district and who you would call up. Would you draft across the entire nation? Would you, I don't know. It's up to you. Starting with Etho.
Well, I would like to start by saying I am unequivocally opposed to any sort of draft that we would levy against our people. That is an immediate infringement upon the rights of people to decide whether or not they want to commit to the service. So firstly, with that, I would say that we should not draft. Secondly, I think that we should ensure that there's peace between the districts. I think it's important for the internal security of the districts to have their own military. I would not infringe upon that, but I think it's necessary in times of conflict that we peacefully mediate, and only at the last moment in which it is violence between these two districts that is threatened, that we make any sort of strong military response present against the district that's offending.
All right, thank you, Etho. Next up is Taiko.
Well, I do believe that on occasion it is normal for districts to have their disputes between them. Where I will likely draw the line is when many districts start getting involved and there is a very large conflict brewing. At that point, I will probably attempt to assemble a volunteer military force, attempt to dissuade the conflict from continuing, as it could pose major damage to our economy and our natural resources and many of the citizens who live in the districts that are at war. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Taiko. Next up is going to be Ray.
Well, first of all, I would like to agree with both of the candidates to my left. They both bring very good points there. And I mean, I have seen firsthand when I was in the previous Senate the dangers of letting districts just run wild with personal armies. I mean, we remember the Islesian War. We remember the Lenatian-Boupmont War. We remember the crisis on Romulus Island. You know, this stuff is dangerous. And Well, I believe districts should be given militaries like as national guards to allow them to keep the peace. I absolutely draw the line at allowing them to infringe on the peace of other districts and to infringe on the federal rule of law that keeps all of our citizens safe.
For clarification, does this mean that you would step in militarily with Imperial forces if there was such a thing as a war brewing?
If districts decide to invade each other or to upset the rule of law and the peace, I would absolutely intervene to maintain the safety of our citizens.
All right. Thank you. Jacob, while the director has the position to use the forces, the prime minister has the ability to step in for any of my duties, which include being number one. So in the line of succession, the prime minister is actually number two for the military, because it would require both myself and the prime minister to be unable to carry out the actions for that to actually fall onto the director. While the director does maintain their private forces, they do not have access to the Imperial forces until those situations are met. All right, next up is going to be, let me see if BDD wrote an answer to this. You can send it at any time if you do, BDD. Here we go. First of all, it's not federally illegal. Secondly, as a senator of Old King, we are obviously quite close to the VSS being their headquarter district, and it will help them with what they require if a district were to cause a worldwide blockade of resources like crystallite. We would probably also intervene in that militarily. Interesting. That is the first time we have had a candidate say that they would intervene for economic reasons as well. Could we get a wide panning shot and have candidates who would intervene in the case of economic strife with military force? All right, it looks like...
Can you clarify what you mean by economic strife? Are we talking like a blockade?
For example, let's do the most extreme example. If a district were to, or a group of districts were to blockade another district and cause severe economic damage to the empire, would you support military force to resolve the situation? And if you do, step on the stage, and if not, don't. It looks like we have Jambon, BDD, and Ray who are saying that they would step in. All right. I'll get to you, Etho. I saw that you clicked the button, but we're just going to let Jambon talk quickly before you respond to those results.
It was just a point of clarification.
Okay, got it. All right, Jambon.
Please repeat the question, sorry.
It's the whole enchilada. Would you use the military, I guess now for economic or military reasons against districts?
Realistically, yes, if it came to a point where it was threatening the empire itself. District on district warfare likely will never occur, and if it does, it would be best for Vooperia to defend the defending district, of course. But I would rather not have to intervene in wars like that. With the effects of a blockade, yes, we'd have to intervene for risks of damage to the empire at large. I yield.
All right, thank you. Now getting to a little bit more of a easy. Do any of you want to touch upon anything your opponents have said during that time, first of all? Right, Ray, I see you hitting that.
Well, I would like to agree with what Jambon said. I think that I would draw between using force and not using forces. If it threatens the empire, if it threatens the rule of law, if it threatens the citizens, then that's when we say, okay, we don't like to interfere with district sovereignty, but if they're doing this, then we need to take a stand. That would be where I draw the line, when it threatens the peace, when it threatens justice.
All right, thank you. Now on to the next question. What is...
I have a question as well from one of our viewers here. This is more specific to the conversation at large. Candidates, would you support allowing districts to inter-district warfare? Please stand on your podium if you support it, and stand off if you do not.
Interesting. It does appear that BDD does support the right for interdistrict warfare. Jambon would like to respond to that.
I believe that we should definitely avoid interdistrict warfare. It is not positive for the Empire at all. However, we should not remove the right to self-govern on a military level, even if we do still condemn military action between districts. It is important for districts to feel they are secure from others, especially hostile districts, even if no war occurs. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we are going to have a easier question here, which is going to be 1 minute. What is the biggest goal you want to achieve in your term? Starting with Jambon.
The biggest goal for me is just getting the government to move as quickly as possible. We need everyone in by the end of the term. Optimally, I want senators, the whole courts, and ministers in, preferably, even if that requires some people in multiple roles. That they can be moved out eventually, but it needs to be moving by the end of my term. It has to be fast and ready. Thank you.
All right. Next up is going to be Devin.
The largest goal of my turn, I'll be pretty pessimistic with this, is establishing a functioning government. We're coming back from years of nothing. So my first goal will be getting the country up and running. As I said before, creating a staff of the best and brightest people. That way we can get the country back on track. Obviously, I have other goals outside of that, like I previously said, in stating workplace democracy. But that's all pretty optimistic. As you know, the government's starting back up after many years of hiatus, so some things might take some time. I won't kid the voters. Some things will take time and effort, but overall, if we're willing to try, we can get things done.
All right. Thank you. Next up is going to be BDD.
Probably making a Supreme Court that's not one party, I guess, one view on the world. Not all fascists or all communists or all anything, just a bit of everything.
I'm very appreciative that the two options are fascist or communist. Next up, we will have Ray.
Well, because the first term, it's a very important one. You're talking about our major goals. I would like to stress that I believe that the first term of the PM should be a very balanced one, especially since it's so short. Like I said earlier, I am very big and very well respected on my ability to multitask and to do many things at once. So I would like to say I have no one goal at all, and I will not give one goal, because I believe that we need to get the economy now running, the government running. There's many things that we need to do, and we need to do them all at once. And I don't think we should have one goal in mind.
Taiko, if you'd like to rebut that, you have to press the button. You can't just say it in Minecraft chat.
I don't have anything to rebut. I was just making a comment.
Okay. Well, Mr. Two-Face, it's your turn.
My name's Taiko, actually. I think you misread it. Are you dyslexic?
Oh, Mr. Taiko. Sorry.
Main goal is to have basically all of the laws that we need in place, such as election laws, requirement laws, such as the Government Standards Act. Basically any laws like that we had previously, I want to bring those back. We need the court laws that can pertain to how the court is run, since that is a very important aspect. I also want to have the Supreme Court entirely filled with qualified individuals, so that whenever issues arise with resources or the economy, the Supreme Court can handle that quickly and efficiently and avoid a court backlog like we have seen before. I yield.
All right, thank you. And finally, we are going to have Etho.
Well, I would say that my primary goal going in is just to make sure that we set up the boundaries of government, to ensure that government knows where its role is, to protect liberty, to ensure that we're putting the rights that are put in our natural rights enshrined in the Constitution first, make sure that government is representative of that and knows when it has to step back and let people make those decisions for themselves. We need to make sure that by the end of my term, the government is set up for that sort of mindset going forward, so that by the time I leave office, if it's only for one term, we have a government that's focused on liberty and puts those rights first.
All right. So our next question is going to be, can you say one nice thing about another candidate on this stage? And we are going to start with Mr. Etho.
Well, I've had the pleasure of knowing Taiko for quite a while now. I think that Taiko has a wealth of experience and knowledge when it comes to government. That's one of the primary drivers for why, if I am to be elected prime minister, I would trust Taiko to be on the Supreme Court. I would have a discussion with him on the matter of putting liberty first, but I think in terms of his experience, he's beyond qualified to serve in that sort of position. So I believe that's something that should be recognized about Taiko.
Would you extend that to prime ministership and say he's experienced for that role?
I would say that he's qualified. I will give him that, but I don't believe that he is committed to liberty to the same extent that I am.
All right, thank you. Next up is going to be Taiko to say one nice thing about another candidate.
I'll compliment Jamban, since I don't think there's a single person who's run for prime minister or president as many times as Jamban. It really just shows their dedication to the community and their willingness to try to put in effort to make things better, even if they don't always succeed. I really respect that level of dedication. Even if you can't always get what you want and still put in the effort to do what you want to do.
All right. Thank you. And next up, we are going to go on to Ray. Could we please stop saying funny things in chat?
Well, I would like to compliment two candidates actually. First, I would like to compliment Taiko on my left here. I mean, his experience is so great. If I weren't running, I would definitely vote for him, and I put him as the second choice after me because he is just very qualified and a very dedicated person who, has a long track record of doing a great job. And I would also like to thank BDD on the right here for giving some more unusual opinions to debate and not being afraid to, speak up for his opinions and not just, walking with what everyone else is saying, for being a little bit different. And of course, I would like to thank him for endorsing me if he wasn't running to endorse me. I would like to thank him for that also.
All right, thank you. Next up is going to be BDD.
Refer to the question where it was what distinguishes you from other candidates, and I said Ray is a good candidate.
Okay. So just for the audience, it sounds like he said Ray is good. All right. So next up is going to be Devin.
Oh, easily. So let's go down the list. So we got Taiko. We can all agree has been one of the most active, if not the most active member of all time. White Hat. I remember them when me and Pope were running the country. I remember how promising they were as a politician, and they proved out stellarly. Etho, as we know, has been around since the very beginning and has long time been a monolith of the community. Jamban, same thing with them. Plus, they're really funny. I always found them really funny. I've never actually figured out how to pronounce Bashad, or however you pronounce it. Same thing with the other two. Longtime member. I think they're pretty great, although I don't really have many interactions with them. Ball of Emotions. I don't particularly know them, but I'm sure I'm sure they're a great candidate. Generally, I think everyone who's running knows what they're up for, and they want to help the country. They want to help the RP back alive.
All right, thank you.
That was great.
Next up is going to be Hope.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that was funny. But also, I do have another question. From the audience. This one refers to districts. During a lot of
There's
SV1.
one response left. Just 1 second, Pope. That's
Okay.
right after Jambon goes.
Okay.
All right, Jambon. One nice thing to another candidate.
I really do respect the dedication, especially of Taiko and Ray, to activity, especially in the modern day. They have done so much, especially on the activity front, in the last few years, year or so. Even if I don't necessarily agree with what they do, they are still here, they're present, they show that they're real people. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
go ahead, Pope.
Time for this audience question. All right, candidates. This question refers to districts. During SV1, there was a lot of district activity, especially in the bigger districts like San Francisco and Medievala. I'm going to call it that. Yeah, those two districts were very, very good on district activity. What will you do as Prime Minister to encourage that level of district activity? We will start with Etho.
Well, I think that goes back again to ensuring that we have a system that's engaging for people. I think that if we have a dedication to having people that want to get involved, leading in these districts, as well as having a robust economic system that allows for people to use district-specific resources in the economy, that will ensure that there is district activity as well as greater activity for the whole country. I think that it's important that we zoom in on what each district has to offer and kind of market that as a way for people to want to get involved in specific districts. They may want to start a business that sells chrysolite, and that is based in one district, that gets them involved over there. And there are different things that can get people to really want to get involved at the district level too.
All right, Taiko is going to be next up.
Well, one of the things that was first suggested by Prime Minister Silly Possibility, the one and only, is the idea of theming districts. That is something I have found wildly successful in transforming Landing Cove from like a district with like 3 people that nobody cares about to the district that I believe currently has the largest population out of any district. It has been extremely effective, and I highly encourage other districts to consider their district about one cause. With Landing Cove, that's been pirates. With Old King, that's been like the VSS. Nature, that's been the medieval side of things. Everything like that with the theming is really great for getting people integrated in the community and causing the roleplay to thrive in those districts.
All right, next up is going to be Ray.
Well, I would say that as far as district activity, we did have some district activity in the previous Senate, but it was very, very uneven. It was concentrated in almost like 3 districts. There were several districts that had difficulty even ever getting senators because they were so small. So I think we definitely need to work on balancing it. The 2 things I would do most importantly I would give things that district governments could do. I would make sure the federal government lets district governments do their own thing and serve their people specifically, so that people are more motivated to pay attention to their individual district. And I would also probably increase the power of district courts, both to make the court system in districts more active, because it was very, very broken and inactive in the previous server. And I would also allow it to it would take some of the weight off of the Supreme Court and the Imperial Court not having to take on every single case. So it would court system, it would balance out the governments, it would balance out citizen activity, it would balance out district activity. So that would be what I would do.
Alrighty, and next up is going to be BDD, who I will read your response, or you can skip if you want because it's an audience question. Pope, can you repeat the question? Okay, Pope has disappeared. It was about district activity and how you would keep district activity up. While you're writing your response to that, we will go to Jambon.
I think we have to appreciate that the main driver of district activity is district members. We have to allow districts to make their own identity, especially with the new ingrained regions and prefectures system. On the website, the divisions will be critical to allow areas to govern and theme themselves, especially as the role-play game nation continues to grow. We cannot rest on our laurels that it will grow, but we have to have it grow for activity. Division is critical to making how people have an identity.
Okay, all right. BDD says, I think a good idea will be to give federal grants to every district that have to be split evenly between district members, and as such, districts with less people will be paid more per person and then attract people from larger districts. So that's a pretty unique idea. All right, thank you for those. Now, I am going to add one final question before the last question because I'm me. BDD, just type your answer out early. This entire meeting is focused on Prime Ministership of Vooperia, and Vooperia is incredibly important. However, it does not take a whole lot of surmising to realize that as we are moving on to Valor, that Valor is going to be the most important factor in building our new nation. Our activity is going to be directly linked to our ability to get activity on Valor. There was a question about if you would be using Valor. I think that's silly because we're going to be requiring all government things to happen on Valor, so that's a pointless question to ask. Yes, you're going to have to. My question is, how are you going to not just lead our nation, but represent the largest and first community on Valor and bring new activity to the platform as a whole? Because the success of Valor will lead to the success of Vooperia. If we have thousands of people on Valor and we are able to spotlight our own server, we can get a lot of members. How are you going to help drive that? And we are going to start with Etho.
Well, there's kind of two ends to that. Firstly, I think that ensuring that the server in of itself is something that's attractive is important. But I think that in terms of how we make the platform more attractive once it's gotten itself into the beta, into later stages of its development, would be for us to ensure that we're advertising it correctly. I mean, I myself am looking to get involved in a more direct respect with the promotion of Valor externally. So I would say that's definitely the way that I would go about doing that, alongside leading the community in of itself. So multiple capacities.
Mr. Emperor?
I will be taking over as the new moderator.
Okay, so we are going to move on to Taiko. Taiko, please answer your question.
Of course, there's only so much I can do to make lore Valor a thing. I'm already one of the most active people on Valor. Let me check where I am at. But I believe it's important that we move over to this new platform, because on this platform we can make things specifically for us to benefit us and make us a very strong community with things such as the Valor economy system and item system. I think it's important that we use these to their full advantage in order to represent our community on Valor.
Thank you. Now we are going to move on to Ray.
Well, first, going on what he said, I would like to make it clear. I mean, I am also very active on Valor. I mean, I'm more active than most of the people in this room right now. I connected my account just 2 days ago, and I'm already the 8th most active person, already passing up a lot of people who had their accounts connected for much longer. So I think it's pretty clear that I'm very active. I think as far as onboarding people onto Valor, we would need to both we need to make the transition smooth from Discord to Valor, and we also need to make it desirable. So people need to both find it easy to move on to the new platform, and we also need to, we need to make it easy. And I would like to also point out that I am the only person in all of Vooperia who actually joined Valor first and SpookVooper second. I am the only person who has ever done that, and I think that gives me a very unique perspective on onboarding people from Valor onto the community, since I was one of those people myself, and I yield.
Thank you. We're going to move on to BDD now. Would you like me to read your answer? Okay, so this is BDD's answer. I said in the Tyler interview that I would like to have some credits paid to people to make ads and put it on YouTube. Obviously, these have to be quality controlled by someone, so it's not just a money printer for random cheaters. Also, when Valor's active, I will be more active than I am currently. Okay, thank you very much for your answer, BDD. So, since Devin is not here and his answers are pre-recorded, we are going to move on to Jambon.
We have to understand that the main source of activity is members. So we have to make sure as many people as possible who join SpookVooper, as they probably will, moving to Valor, are willing to stay. Staying is the main problem for us. We've always had this problem. We just need to make sure people stick around and are engaged. So something to keep people on, onboarding bonuses, whatever it takes. We just need to keep them here. We do. Well, maybe you don't, Tom, but someone has to.
All right. One last thing I'd like to ask with a wide shot. How many of you will dedicate yourselves to ensuring that our Discord members make the transition onto Valor? Great. I was expecting all of you to stand up for that, so very nice. All right. I believe we have one last question, which seems... no, we're going into closing remarks now, actually. So, I don't know if Pope is here and wants to say something for that. It seems he's not, so I guess... Dan, do you want to carry the closing remarks?
I don't have anything prepared.
Okay, I'll do it then.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I think we have seen a very, very strong showing today of people who care a lot about the Empire in the future of SpookVooper. It's clear that each one of you would be a fantastic leader, although your methods do certainly differ. We have a lot of different ideas on governance. We had a few things where you guys really stood out, and I think that the audience has learned a lot about your platforms. I'm really hopeful you guys write this all down on pieces of paper and display it prominently so that all the people who aren't here today and don't want to watch a video will know your platform. There's been a slight lack of platforms recently. But I highly appreciate you guys coming here, and I'd like you all to have a chance to have closing statements. I am going to allow rebuttals during this closing statement because that's entertaining, so why not? And we are going to be starting with Jambon. We will be giving 1 minute for closing statements.
I haven't got much to say. Really, it depends on if you understand what you need in Spook Vooper. I feel like I do, but who knows? Maybe someone else knows. Hopefully I do, and hopefully you'll vote for me. Goodbye.
All right. Next up is going to be Devin.
So we did not have any closing statements pre-recorded for Devin, so we are going to move on to BDDD if he has something prepared.
That works. All right. I guess we're going to be moving straight on to Ray.
Well, I mean, I would like to make it clear. I mean, I have the experience. I've proven the experience. As I said, I'm the only person who actually joined from Valor to Spook Vooper directly, so I have that unique experience. I'm the newest person currently on stage. I mean, I joined much more recently. I have a much fresher perspective. I'm the most recent prime minister. I was the last prime minister before the previous Senate ended. I've been in other branches of government. I've been consistently active. I've been very well respected. I've been very unbiased. I've been on the mod team. I'm an admin now. I mean, there's nothing more you can ask for than my level of broad experience, deep experience, and I believe I have what it takes to lead this new Senate and this new nation through its formative years. Thank you.
All right. And next up is going to be Ethan. No, I'm joking. Taiko.
We are in a battle for the soul of our nation. And what we
Whoa,
need
whoa,
right
whoa,
now...
whoa, whoa, whoa. We are not allowing plagiarism on this stand. All right? No plagiarism.
We are in a battle for the nation.
Okay, we're going to skip till Etho until Taiko cannot plagiarize, because plagiarism is not allowed in any formal debate. All right, Etho.
Isn't plagiarism?
Well, I think that it has been a wonderful opportunity to engage with all the people on the stage. I think that there's a wealth of experience and knowledge on this stage. But I think, I present myself as the candidate which has the perfect balance of experience. I've been here since the inception of the community in its current form. I've seen the government develop in multiple ways, seen what's gone wrong, what's worked. I have an outlook that is firmly rooted in ensuring that we have individual liberties for our citizens that are enshrined, that people are able to engage in government and the economy freely without the worry of government really leaning on them in a way that infringes upon their natural rights as enshrined in the Constitution. I'm going to be a candidate which is going to stand up for each and every citizen in our government, ensuring that they have the freedoms that they so deserve, that are inherent to their existence, and that I appoint judges, I set the guidelines in such a way that that is going to be the outset ideology of our government, and that going forward, we are set up for success in that respect. I'm going to be ensuring that our economy is strong, that there is a strong currency that stands behind us, that we have a reliable system that people will be engaged in, people will be excited to get involved in. And I look forward to engaging with you afterwards. I look forward to sharing my platform with you after this debate.
All right, Taiko. Hopefully not plagiarize this time.
Oh, this is from my mind. Out of everyone here, everyone here knows what I'm going to do. I am going to do what I've done before. I'm going to keep doing it even if I win or not. There's not a single thing here that will stop me from doing what I want to do. Where was I going with this? I have the experience. I have the willpower. I know people who will help. I didn't prepare closing statements. Yeah, vote for me, and I will do what I will do. You know what I will do, and I'll do it.
All right. Thank you. I'll let Dan handle the closing remarks from our end.
Sure. So, thank you everyone for attending the 5th Prime Minister debate. It's been a real honor to help host this and to help set this up. Everyone did a wonderful job, and please make sure to keep a lookout for a poll that's silly or another staff member or government member is probably going to be posting to see what the polling is like after this debate. Everyone has made some good points, and everyone has shown what they are planning on doing. So it's going to make some big impact on the polls, hopefully. So I have one final question for all of you. What would you do in the event of a fire?
Is that an actual?
Oh
God! Oh God!
Come with me.
Oh.
Stand here. Please stand here.
Oh! Ah!
Wait, where did they go?
Coming over,
I
guys.
think there's a fire.
Where are you guys going?
The audience.
That really is quite an explosion. I didn't expect that much.
I think we're all fine.
Well, I'm really glad I'm safe in this poll.
Oh, yeah, you're
If all the candidates died, does that mean I get to consolidate?
No, we're all alive! We're all alive! Not the soul.
Thank you for taking
Why is the
We're
bed
gonna
pink?
refill, right?
And there's two of us and there's only one bed, Dan. There's only one bed.
It's a test. You know. Like a little.
Wait, not on the stage anywhere else.
Alright, well, I'm thinking the bed for me. Wait, what? What? No! Why can't I kill you?
You could just kill them. Both of you can die. You guys both can die. I promise that I will not let ever again. Shut up.
I'm not good after 30 seconds, I think.
Alright. What? No! Okay, we can end the broadcast now.
Alright.
Yeah.